Chapter 2661. You're wrong. I've only entered the late stage of the Sage Realm, Yi Shiwen said with a dull look on his face. He was releasing a terrifying power from his body in a steady stream. He was becoming more powerful with every passing moment. His strength would increase with every breath, and his martial power would increase crazily with every heartbeat. This was a terrifying metamorphosis that was realized in his body. He had surpassed the limit of power that the Sage Realm could contain, and he had entered the titled King Realm in one fell swoop. After experiencing all sorts of things, he had finally entered the late stage of the Sage Realm. The battle just now was his catalyst, and it was even intentional. Otherwise, he would not have fought so hard and held on to the Crystal King. He wanted to use the Crystal King's power to allow him to metamorphose and truly cross the last step. This step was extremely difficult for Jiang Yi. As he had taken much less time than others, he was destined to have a much harder time than others. If not for the mysterious space, he would not have been able to do this. It was the mysterious space that had helped him analyze the nomological laws and powers of the King-ranked realm before he had even entered the King-ranked realm. That was why he had the opportunity to take this step. Even Yi Shiwen could not help but be a little surprised. He did not expect that there was a king of assassins hiding, and he did not even move. Even when he watched the Crystal King die, he did not show any signs of making a move. He had taken advantage of the moment when Yi Shiwen was killing the Crystal King to make a move. It had to be said that this was the method of a real king of assassins when it came to ambushes. In order to kill a person, he could hide for 10,000 years without moving. Watching the Crystal King die, he did not waver in the slightest. In the eyes of the king of assassins, even the Crystal King had become bait to lure him to make a move. It could be said that everything was under his control and calculation. Precise calculations, cold and ruthless, and extremely terrifying. But the only thing he did not calculate was that Yi Shiwen could advance further in such an intense battle and enter the late stage of the Sage Realm. And this negligence was the most fatal point. This sword was easily blocked by Yi Shiwen. He faintly smelled a tempting flower fragrance in the air, and he immediately knew who it was. It was the King of Assassins from the Hidden Flower House, one of the 4 major assassin organizations alongside the Hidden Demon Clan and the Bloody Slaughter Society. The legend of the Hidden Flower House was extremely famous in the myriad heavens and realms, but there were not many specific examples about them. They rarely made a move, but every time they did, it was earth-shattering. Even in their heyday, they dared to make a move against the Emperor. Later, they angered an Emperor who killed them all. From then on, everyone thought that they had declined. Unexpectedly, the Hidden Flower House had reappeared, and the moment it appeared, it was a king of assassins personally making a move. This could not be said to not be a big deal. In this way, there were already 3 king of assassins personally making a move. It was really a big deal. The person behind it could be said that he hated him to the core. 1 king of assassins to deal with him, a junior of the Sage Realm, was already like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. They thought very highly of him. Unexpectedly, there were actually 3 king of assassins. This was like using a nuclear bomb to kill a chicken. This made him not know whether to laugh or cry at the same time. Was he that big of a threat or that big of a hatred? However, these thoughts only turned for a moment. His expression became even colder. Since you are here, then don't leave. Accompany the Crystal King. At this time, the fragrance of flowers in the air was getting stronger and stronger. It was like the blood flowers of the Blood Slaughter Gang. This was also the symbol of the Hidden Flower House. It looked like the fragrance of flowers, but it was actually extremely poisonous. Those who smelled it would have their intestines pierced in a short period of time, and they would die a horrible death. However, it was impossible to use this move against Yi Shiwen, who had the Gilded Tyrant form. It could not even break his skin. As Yi Shiwen said this, he finally made his move. All the power in his body was flowing, and a shocking aura burst out. His whole body was like Pangu, who split the heavens and the earth apart. He stood tall, flowing with brilliant light. He had just broken through to the late stage of the Sage Realm, and he could not wait to fight. Boom! He threw a punch, and a terrifying aura that could only belong to a master of the titled king realm exploded in the air. Originally, he had needed to use the Sword of Avicii to have the strength to threaten the titled king realm. Now, with just his own strength, he was able to conquer a master of the titled king realm. Rumble! Above the blood prison, the space crazily collapsed, and a figure was finally revealed. It was a mysterious person, hidden under countless layers of space. It was a middle-aged man who looked completely ordinary. If one met this middle-aged man in a crowd, one might not even notice that he was a super killer. He had hidden himself to the extreme. However, he was a king of assassins. So, there is also the matter of the Hidden Flower House. It seems that I will have to go to the Hidden Flower House sooner or later, Yi Shiwen said coldly. Although the Hidden Flower House had always been mysterious, and it was almost impossible to find their roots, since they existed, there was no reason why he could not find them. With his current strength, it was not impossible to find them. The middle-aged man only looked at Yi Shiwen coldly and said, "You just used some sneaky tricks to kill the Jin King. Do you think you are invincible in the world?" The middle-aged man's eyes were golden, and his body exuded a dangerous aura. As time passed, it became more and more intense. "Sneaky tricks?" Yi Shiwen sneered. "Now, I will show you my true strength." Terrifying magic power rushed out of Yi Shiwen's body. The golden magic power made him seem as if he was bathed in a golden glow. He directly blasted out a punch. 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Held out. This was the third punch that he had comprehended. In between life and death, he had comprehended this. It was the head of the 3 evil paths in the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. The comprehension of the third punch had greatly increased the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. The middle-aged man roared, and also rushed over with his sword. The sword light was sharp, and it contended with Yi Shiwen's fist intent. Bang! 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 The battle between the two directly caused the void to boil. The middle-aged man's strength was not weaker than the Jin King's. He was even more difficult and terrifying to deal with. If the middle-aged man had been the one to attack first, Yi Shiwen might not have been able to hold on until he broke through to the late stage of the Sage Realm. However, there was no such thing as hypotheses in the world. Yi Shiwen's combat prowess continued to soar. He was improving his powers with every passing second. As he entered the late stage of the Sage Plane, his level slowly stabilized, and he was able to unleash even more powers to fight back. The middle-aged man became more and more shocked as he fought. He could not believe it. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would never have believed that a junior in the late stage of the Sage Realm could have such domineering combat strength. It was simply unparalleled. He was not even afraid of king-rank cultivators. Sooner or later, he would be invincible in the world. "I will finish you with another punch." Yi Shiwen's blood was burning and boiling. His fighting spirit had reached its peak, and his aura was even more violent. This was the first time he had truly faced a king-ranked cultivator head-on. He did not hold back and destroyed everything. Boom! This punch was extremely domineering. His tyrant golden body was also activated to the extreme, reaching its peak. The short sword in the middle-aged man's hand shattered inch by inch in an instant, turning into a sky full of light that swept in all directions. The golden shards scattered in all directions without any pattern. Many even blasted directly into the middle-aged man's body. Blood splattered high, and bone fragments flew everywhere. Such a battle was shocking. In the Hidden Valley, many formidable martial artists had already dared to come. However, they did not dare to intervene in the battle between the titled kings. Many of them were already at the Sage Plane, and some were even at the pinnacle of the Sage Plane. While they did not dare to participate in the battle, they were still able to make some judgments. Yi Shiwen had destroyed what could have been a supreme-grade divine artifact with a single punch. Such physical strength was unprecedented and unbelievable. Even in the current Hidden Valley, there seemed to be no one whose physical body could be so strong. Even the legendary Golden Rock King could not achieve such a feat. A top-grade divine implement was different from a top-grade divine implement. It had rule patterns forged by a king-ranked cultivator, and it was connected to the heart and soul. Its power was incomparable, and it was almost the most terrifying weapon in the world. Now, it had been destroyed by a punch from Yi Shiwen. How strong was his physical body? However, Yi Shiwen knew that the dagger hadn't been refined completely. It was between a high-grade divine tool and a top-grade divine tool. After all, it was very difficult to refine a top-grade divine tool. It was unknown how many tens of thousands of years it would take even an ordinary king-level expert to find all the divine materials needed to refine a top-grade divine tool, let alone complete the refinement of the dagger. Otherwise, with his current cultivation, he would only be able to contend with a top-grade divine implement at most. He would not have the ability to destroy a top-grade divine implement so easily. Is this all the Hidden Flower Pavilion has? Yi Shiwen let out a long roar that shook the entire blood prison. He was like a trapped dragon that had escaped from its cage. He looked up to the sky and roared. His black hair fluttered in the wind as he rushed towards the Hidden Flower Pavilion's king of assassins. The Hidden Flower Pavilion's king of assassins had already been killed by Yi Shiwen's punch. How could he dare to stay? He quickly turned around and fled. He did not care about anything else as he fled towards the periphery of the blood prison. You want to leave? It's too late now. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and chased after the Hidden Flower Pavilion's king of assassins. He held the Avicii sword and chased after him. On the other side, the Flame Lord and the Hidden Demon Clan's king of assassins were fighting fiercely. At this moment, the Hidden Demon Clan's king of assassins also saw the situation of the battle. He could not believe it. The Crystal King had fallen, and the Hidden Flower Pavilion's king of assassins was being chased so miserably. Both of them were not weaker than him. Then he watched helplessly as Yi Shiwen caught up with the Hidden Flower Pavilion's king of assassins. Yi Shiwen killed him with one sword. The Tianyuan mirror and the demon beckoning banner swallowed his flesh and blood. He was almost scared to death. Chapter 2662. He did not notice the exact situation just now. Although the Lord of Flames had just become a king, he was not easy to fool. The Lord of Flames could only focus on dealing with the Lord of Flames, or rather, try his best to delay the Lord of Flames. Otherwise, he might not be a match for the Lord of Flames in a head-on battle. He had thought that it would be natural for the two King of Assassins to kill a junior in the Sage Realm. Who would have thought that the two King of Assassins would be killed by Yi Shiwen? Although he did not know how Yi Shiwen did it, the sensitivity of the King of Assassins made him immediately understand that he could not stay for long. He quickly escaped in a beam of light. In the Blood Prison, this was considered one of the core areas of the Hidden Valley. It was impossible for anyone to travel through space to escape or teleport in. The space had been strengthened to the point that even a king would not be able to tear it open and enter. You want to leave? Yi Shiwen took a step forward and chased after the Lord of Flames. He was mighty and domineering. On the other side, the Lord of Flames also turned into a ball of fire and chased after Yi Shiwen. He was extremely embarrassed. These people did not respect the Hidden Valley at all. At the same time, his heart was churning like a raging river. He could not believe it. He had been very worried about Yi Shiwen. In the end, he saw Yi Shiwen kill two King of Assassins. One of them was even killed in front of him. Yi Shiwen was even more ferocious than him, a King of Assassins. He felt that he could no longer see through this junior brother of his. Previously, Jiang Yi's strength was already enough to kill those monstrous talents as if they were dogs. Now, Jiang Yi had even broken through to the king-ranked realm. However, Jiang Yi did not sense any nomological laws or aura from Jiang Yi's body. This meant that this junior brother of his actually had the ability to go against the flow and break through to the king-ranked realm. If word of this got out, it would cause a huge uproar. He even had a feeling that his junior brother's future was limitless. Perhaps he could really reach the invincible realm that even King of Assassins like him yearned for, but could not reach. However, he didn't have the time to think about this at this time. The King of Assassins of the Hidden Devil Clan was fleeing at an extremely fast speed. Speed was the fundamental method of survival for assassins. However, it was obvious that Yi Shiwen's speed had reached the pinnacle if they were fast. Yi Shiwen's black hair fluttered in the wind. He took a step forward and threw a punch. The dreadful fist energy distorted, and shook the entire blood prison. It then bombarded towards the hidden devil clan's king of assassins. At this time, Yi Shiwen's dreadful fist energy was no less than that of a formidable king. The hidden devil clan's king of assassins turned pale with fright. His entire body burst out with an astonishing devil light. He held a long sword in his hand and turned around to attack. He wanted to kill Yi Shiwen. This was the ultimate power of a king-ranked realm martial artist. It caused the heavens to explode. However, Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid at all. He rushed towards this invincible power. His whole body was flowing with golden rays of light. It was resplendent and magnificent. Boom! The long sword and Yi Shiwen's fist collided, and a dreadful force instantly overcame the arm of the hidden devil clan's king of assassins. Bang! The hidden devil clan's king of assassins instantly screamed. His entire arm exploded, turning into a bloody mist. His eyes widened in anger when he saw the terrifying scene. Yi Shiwen was hot on his heels, and the Lord of Flames was rushing over as well. He didn't dare to stay any longer. He immediately chanted an ancient incantation, and the blood mist that was drifting in the sky suddenly turned into talismans that filled the sky. Then, they turned into a bloody, burning energy that poured into his body, and he went berserk. Sky-piercing strike. He let out a loud roar, and his entire aura became abnormally berserk. This strike was already extremely tyrannical. Even a king-ranked realm martial artist who was at a higher cultivation level than him would be seriously injured, or even die tragically if he was hit by this strike. The repercussions were huge. However, he had no other choice. Yi Shiwen's chi and blood had also been raised to the peak. All the martial arts in his body were concentrated on his fist. 6 paths of reincarnation. He let out a loud roar as he punched out the 6 paths of reincarnation and smashed it down. The shocking light from the sword pierced into the 6 paths of reincarnation and formed a shocking wave. However, the 6 paths of reincarnation did not move at all. It only suppressed, and suppressed continuously. This punch was really shocking. He had actually suppressed the king of assassins' desperate counterattack. If these king of assassins were to really fight with their lives on the line, they would be far more troublesome than ordinary king realm martial artists. This was because their methods were more insidious. The power that they could erupt in an instant was terrifying. The hidden devil clan's king of assassins' strength was gradually weakening. However, Yi Shiwen's fist force was gradually increasing. Finally, it seemed as if it had reached its limit. Bang! The king of assassins of the hidden devil clan was sent flying by the power of the backlash. He let out a blood-curdling screech, and his entire chest burst open. Yi Shiwen's 6 paths roulette immediately followed up and suppressed him. Boom! His powerful demonic body exploded in midair. It was torn into pieces, and his spirit was destroyed. The power of Yi Shiwen's punch was so strong that it could shock the heavens and the earth. All the experts in the Hidden Valley were alarmed by this battle. However, they could not help but fall silent when they saw the outcome of the battle. They were extremely shocked in their hearts. They could vaguely remember when Yi Shiwen had just entered the Hidden Valley thousands of years ago. At that time, he had not even reached the Tao-confirming realm. In front of these old antiques, he was just a slightly dazzling junior. Now, he had grown to the point where even they had to look up to him. If this had happened thousands of years ago, no one would have believed it even if they had said it. These people had cultivated for hundreds of thousands of years, or even millions of years. There were even some who had cultivated for millions of years. However, they had been surpassed by a junior in the end. The shock in their hearts could not subside for a long time. However, it was followed by an unusually excited mood. This time, besides the Lord of Flames in the Hidden Valley, Yi Shiwen had also successfully broken through. Although he had not been conferred as a king yet, in terms of combat power, Yi Shiwen was probably comparable to a king realm martial artist. He could definitely be on equal footing with a king realm martial artist. This meant that the Hidden Valley had gained 2 more king realm martial artists in one go. Their strength had suddenly increased by a lot. It was important to know that many king realm sects only had 1 or 2 king realm martial artists. The stronger the hidden valley was, the more benefits they could obtain. Yi Shiwen fed the hidden devil clan's king of assassins' bones and blood to the Tianyuan mirror and the demon summoning banner. At this time, within the demon summoning banner, there were already a few demon kings that were about to transform into king realm martial artists. After devouring these bones and blood, they had even started to reconstruct their true bodies. At that time, they would be no different from ordinary king realm martial artists. Without a doubt, this would greatly increase Yi Shiwen's strength. Junior brother Yi, are you all right? The Sovereign of Flames stepped forward and asked. Seeing how powerful and invincible Yi Shiwen was, he was afraid that Yi Shiwen had used some secret technique to deal with these king of assassins. If that happened, he might feel good for a while. However, in the future, there might be serious repercussions. The gains would not make up for the losses. I'm fine. I'm very well. I've just broken through, and someone has come to me to practice. This is great. Yi Shiwen grinned and then looked at the Sovereign of Flames. He smiled and said, I haven't congratulated senior brother for finally becoming a king. The Sovereign of Flames waved his hand, his expression very calm. He said, it's only a matter of time before I break through to the king realm. There's nothing strange about it. However, junior brother, you managed to cultivate to this stage in such a short time. Even I, as your senior brother, am ashamed of my inferiority. Senior brother's foundations are strong. After this breakthrough, it's only a matter of time before you break through again. It's not a big deal. Yi Shiwen smiled and said, this time, 3 king of assassins actually came personally. They really think highly of me. Ah, what do you mean by that? I think they are the ones who are underestimating you, junior brother. The Sovereign of Flames laughed heartily, which was rare for him. His originally depressed mood had mostly been swept away. Although the other party was very calculative, the only thing that they had miscalculated was that Yi Shiwen had been able to snatch the king of assassins to this extent. He was a monster. The Sovereign of Flames knew very well that in terms of attainment level, he was naturally higher than Yi Shiwen. However, in terms of battle skills, Yi Shiwen was probably above him. One had to know that with his monstrous accumulation, ordinary early-stage king-ranked realm martial artists were no match for him. Yet, Yi Shiwen was even above him. The Sovereign of Flames could only say that Yi Shiwen was really a monster. He was going to defy the heavens. However, we cannot let this matter rest so easily. To be able to invite 3 king of assassins, there must be a powerful force behind them. This time, we must make them pay the price. The Sovereign of Flames said with a serious expression. They were a top-tier king-ranked sect. To think that someone had managed to sneak into their territory. This was a huge humiliation. These people were really audacious. Yi Shiwen did not stop him. I will leave these matters to senior brother. Now, I will go into seclusion for a period of time to consolidate my cultivation. No problem. Leave these matters to me. Junior brother, you don't have to worry about it. The Sovereign of Flames said. Yi Shiwen nodded, turned, and returned to the top of the blood pool. He began to go into seclusion. This time, besides going into seclusion, he also wanted to refine the Tianyuan mirror to the level of a supreme-grade divine artifact. He had already become one with the Tianyuan mirror. The stronger the Tianyuan mirror was, the stronger he would be. There were only advantages and no disadvantages. Now that the Tianyuan mirror was just one step away from breaking through, he could use this opportunity to refine the Tianyuan mirror into a supreme-grade divine artifact. Chapter 2663. 50 years passed in the blink of an eye. To the outside world, the confrontation between the Tian clan and the various allied armies had already become the main theme. Finally, after countless wrangling, the various races were finally able to sit down and discuss the establishment of the Third Allied Army. In order to find the Heavenly Clan expert who had obtained the opportunity to become a martial emperor, the Allied forces began to sweep through all the Heavenly Clan strongholds. They had to find and kill him in the shortest time possible. The only good news was that the opportunity to become a martial emperor had been largely destroyed by Yi Shiwen. It was not complete. It would not be easy for the other party to use this opportunity to become a martial emperor. Therefore, with the help of the martial sect, Yi Shiwen became a hero who had made great contributions. His name became more and more well-known as the Heavenly Clan team's incident became more and more mainstream. However, in their opinion, Yi Shiwen was still only a Sage Realm expert. He was not qualified to be a king. The incident of the three king of assassins attacking the Hidden Valley was concealed by the Hidden Valley. The experts of the Hidden Valley naturally knew the severity of the matter. Therefore, although everyone knew that the Hidden Valley had been attacked, no one knew that the three king of assassins had actually died in Yi Shiwen's hands. They only thought that they had been killed by the other kings of the Hidden Valley. The Hidden Valley flew into a rage because of this. They wanted to investigate the murderers behind these king of assassins. Everyone was well aware that the only person who would have the guts and the motive to assassinate Yi Shiwen was none other than those monstrous geniuses whose disciples had been killed by Yi Shiwen. In fact, there was no one else who would have the guts and motive to assassinate Yi Shiwen. But in general, the situation in the heavenly realm was gradually becoming tense. This was because after dozens of years, the Allied forces had not found the whereabouts of the silver-haired young man. They could not help but feel anxious. The Heavenly Clan might not be considered much now. However, if he was able to become a martial emperor in the future, it would be a disaster for the heavenly realm. In the depths of the blood prison, above the blood pool, suddenly, a violent burst of blood light shot into the sky. A majestic aura belonging to the king realm swept out, instantly alarming many old antiques who were cultivating in the depths of the blood prison. This was definitely the aura belonging to the king realm. There was no doubt about it. However, who had broken through to the king realm? They saw a big hand slap out, directly collecting the aura of the king realm. In front of Yi Shiwen, Tianyuan mirror was constantly floating up and down, exuding a formidable aura. It has finally recovered to the level of a supreme-grade divine artifact. One could never overestimate the usefulness of a natural divine artifact to a god. However, the Tianyuan mirror itself was of a very high grade. Now, it was only recovering. If it was an ordinary king-ranked formidable martial artist who wanted to refine a natural divine artifact, he or she would have to spend 100,000 years, or even hundreds of thousands of years, just to find the right divine ingredients to refine a natural divine artifact. Divine materials that could refine supreme-grade god artifacts were extremely precious without exception, and they couldn't be obtained under ordinary circumstances. In these 50 years, not only had he formed a blood bond with the Tianyuan mirror, but the few demon kings in the demon summoning banner had also reached the king-ranked realm. They had become true monarchs, and the demon summoning banner had also been restored to the level of a supreme-grade divine artifact. Just like the Tianyuan mirror, the quality of the demon summoning banner was originally frighteningly high. If it could be restored to its peak, its power would be frighteningly great. Apart from these, Yi Shiwen had also modified the sword in the stone. He had added all the heavy water essence into the sword in the stone, making it a treasure sword that was heavier than the sun, moon, and stars. When the sword slashed down, even without any other nomological laws or remarkable powers, just its shocking weight alone was enough to completely crush all enemies into pieces. Junior brother, have you come out of seclusion? At this moment, the Lord of Flames figure appeared not far away. Yi Shiwen took a look and saw that it was a doppelganger. It wasn't Yi Shiwen himself who had come. Yes, I've just formed a blood bond. Yi Shiwen nodded. He hadn't wasted the past 50 years. He had completely consolidated his cultivation as a sage late-stage cultivator. If he met those king of assassins again, even if he had to fight 1 against 3, he wouldn't feel any pressure. His improvement was astonishing. Senior brother, why have you come personally? Yi Shiwen asked. The Lord of Flames was very busy. He wouldn't come personally for trivial matters, even if it was just a doppelganger. It's like this. I'm now at the base camp of the Alliance Army. I'm leading an army, and I'm going to destroy a stronghold of the remnants of the heavenly race. I wonder if Junior Brother has the time? If you do, it would be best if we could go together. The Lord of Flames nodded and said, Base camp of the Alliance Army? Senior brother, I've been in seclusion all this time. I'm not sure what's happening outside. Could I trouble senior brother to explain it to me? Yishuan asked. Of course, that won't be a problem, the Lord of Flames said. During this time, the main thing is that the Alliance Army has been established. All king-rank martial artists will have the opportunity to lead an army. All the major factions have to send out a large number of martial artists to form an army to deal with the remnants of the heavenly race. I see. Yishuan nodded. However, he wasn't surprised. After all, these things had happened twice in the past. So, it could be said that he was very familiar with it, especially those races and forces who had participated in the war of resistance against the heavens twice. So, he was completely familiar with it. Yishuan had also heard about this. He had read about it in the ancient records. Senior brother, I didn't go because I needed to consolidate my cultivation. Now that I've consolidated it, I have to go. There are some things that I can't escape, the Lord of Flames said. However, junior brother, if you want to lead an army, I think it's enough. Although you're not at the king rank realm, you have the strength to do so. You can give it a try. Yishuan shook his head and said, It's all right. This is just a small matter. As long as we can eliminate the remnants of the heavenly race and find that silver-haired young man, everything else is fine. Apart from a small number of gods who cultivated the Tao of military formations, the others weren't too willing to get involved. They just couldn't avoid it. I wonder if we've found out the identity of that silver-haired young man? Such a person shouldn't be unknown in the heavenly race. Yishuan continued. And indeed, this person's name is Rebellious Emperor. He was glorious tens of thousands of years ago. He was even earlier than me. He even attracted the pursuit of various races. There were even some king-ranked realm experts among them. However, he managed to escape. I haven't heard any news about him in recent years. I thought he had fallen or been killed by some powerful person. I didn't expect him to come out and obtain the opportunity to become a martial emperor, the Lord of Flames said. Speaking of which, it's all thanks to you. If you hadn't cut off the opportunity to become a martial emperor based on past experience, I'm afraid Rebellious Emperor would have succeeded. When that time comes, it would be a real disaster. Yishuan looked a little regretful. No matter what, not destroying the opportunity to become a martial emperor was not destroying it. It left behind a huge hidden danger. If that's the case, I'll go to the Alliance headquarters and help senior brother. The Alliance headquarters was located in the depths of the God Burial Star Ocean. During the previous two wars against the heavens, the headquarters was set up here. Until now, it was still well equipped. Even when the battle was at its most intense, it had never fallen. Therefore, it was chosen as the Alliance headquarters this time. In other words, this Alliance headquarters had always existed. However, after each war against the heavens, it would disperse, leaving only a small number of people to guard. Now it was time to reactivate. From afar, one could see that one world was connected to another. Looking from afar, it was impossible to see how many worlds this so-called headquarters was made up of. The entire Alliance headquarters was very huge. From afar, one could see that it was majestic and very lively. There were many tyrannical auras faintly revealed. Even from afar, Yishuan could feel them. However, he wasn't surprised. In the Alliance headquarters, almost all the powerful races and forces in the heavens and myriad realms had been captured. It wasn't surprising how many experts there were. Yishuan had just arrived when the Lord of Flames, who had received the news from his doppelganger, rushed over personally. Junior brother, you're finally here, the Lord of Flames said as a smile appeared on his face. He had just been bestowed the title of king. As a newly ascended king, he didn't know how many people were watching him. If he made a mistake, he might become the target of others' attacks. If Yishuan was there to help him, then everything would undoubtedly be much simpler. Others might not know Yishuan's strength, but how could he not know? Senior brother, let's not talk too much. Let's go first. We should be setting off soon, Yishuan said. And Yishuan followed the Sovereign of Flames as they passed through layers of space. Along the way, no one dared to stop them. Although the Sovereign of Flames was a newly ascended sovereign, he was still a bona fide king-rank martial artist. No one dared to stop him. Soon, they arrived at a very secluded world. At a glance, there were hundreds of thousands of people in the world. Among them, the weakest was a demigod expert. Basically, the officers above the rank of sergeant were all gods who had proven their Tao. They could be said to be the elites of the elites. Junior Brother Yi, this is the army that I lead. I am the army commander of this army. If you don't mind, I would like to appoint you as the deputy army commander of this army. In the future, your words will be my words. When I'm not around, you will have the right to exercise the authority of the army commander. The Lord of Flames stared at Yi Shiwen. However, before Yi Shiwen could agree, someone objected. I don't agree. Chapter 2664. Who else has any objections? Yi Shiwen didn't even look at the half-crippled Sage Eagle. Instead, he spoke coldly. The Flame Lord's face immediately darkened. Sage Eagle, why are you objecting? Soon, Yi Shiwen also stepped onto the transmission array. His vision turned black. When he came out, he was already in an extremely spacious universe. At a glance, it seemed like an ordinary universe. There was nothing special about it. However, Yi Shiwen took a closer look and could see that the entire universe was filled with all kinds of array formations and boundaries. There were also array formations that could conceal one's whereabouts. Therefore, ordinary people wouldn't be able to see through them. Oh, you said that he isn't suitable. Then, do you think that you are suitable? The Master of Flames smiled faintly. The depressed expression on his face instantly disappeared like snow melting away. However, it was an expert from the Demon Eagle race who stood out. This was a little interesting. However, that was the case. The entire army was made up of formidable martial artists from various clans and factions. They were all from the King Bestowal sect, which was an eternal and immortal force. Even King Bestowal, formidable martial artists, would find it hard to convince them. The people behind them were not any weaker either. Kill all these remnants of the heavenly race. The Flame Lord's roar reverberated throughout the entire universe. Everyone started moving at once. They removed the array formations that were used to conceal their whereabouts. In an instant, the entire universe was filled with people. His words resonated with many people. Why was Yi Shiwen above them? He was just a junior. Allowing him into the army was already considered taking care of him. However, he had actually become a deputy army lord. There were several deputy army lords in this army. However, none of them had received such an appointment like the Flame Lord. When he wasn't around, this lad's words were equivalent to being the army lord. It was tantamount to placing him above everyone else. In order to conceal their stronghold, the heavenly race had put in a lot of effort. Bang! It seemed as if the Falcon Sage himself had crashed into Yi Shiwen's finger. Then he was sent flying as if he had received a heavy blow. The crowd was very excited. Almost all the clans had a blood feud with the heavenly race. They also knew what this battle meant. If the heavenly race succeeded in having an expert, then they would all have to die. Even if their clans weren't destroyed, they would still have to work for the heavenly race. Relying on the long-cherished wish of winning 2 heavenly wars, they didn't even need to mobilize their emotions. I don't agree. Someone stood up almost immediately. Yi Shiwen turned his head and looked. It was a huge devil eagle. It had restrained itself a lot. However, its body was still as huge as a small hill. It had transformed into a middle-aged man while speaking. However, his appearance was similar to that of an ordinary devil. His whole body was covered with black scales, and he had 2 wings on his back. He looked quite formidable. He looked very formidable. Let me see how powerful you are. After dealing with this troublemaker and suppressing the opposition, the operations of the entire army immediately became smoother. They could all see that the Lord of Flames might not make a move, but Yi Shiwen might not. With such a ruthless deputy army leader, they naturally wouldn't dare to do anything behind the scenes. Everyone knew that Yi Shiwen's relationship with the Demon Eagle clan was very tense. The Demon Eagle clan had even gathered a group of people to go to the Hidden Valley and force them to hand Yi Shiwen over. Boom! Even with the prestige of a king-ranked expert, he didn't dare to say that he could subdue these people in a short period of time. Furthermore, the Flame Lord had just advanced to the king-ranked realm. In fact, in this army, there were probably many old antiques who had cultivated longer than the Flame Lord. It wouldn't be that easy to subdue them. This conflict was just a small example. Many people were waiting to see him make a fool of himself. Roar! However, this is a little too much. They actually casually appointed Yi Shiwen as the deputy army lord. Are they really going to let this junior, who has cultivated for less than 10,000 years, be above us? Eagle Saint continued. He had finally found a chance to challenge the Flame Lord's authority. Yi Shiwen didn't say anything. He just frowned slightly. From this matter, it was obvious that the Flame Lord's control over this army was rather limited. Roar! At this moment, everyone was a little dumbfounded. Who would dare to have any objections? What kind of joke was this? Even Eagle Saint's strength had been crippled, let alone them. Eagle Saint's strength was already at the peak of the Sage realm. In fact, he wasn't much weaker than ordinary monsters. However, he had been sent flying by Yi Shiwen's finger. He didn't even have the ability to pose a threat. Roar! The teleportation formations lit up one by one. Countless demigods in groups of tens of thousands stepped onto the teleportation formations. Battle beasts roared in the universe, opening the prelude to the attack. Kill all the remnants of the Celestial clan. As the saying goes, one should not shy away from family. I think I am indeed qualified to be the Deputy Army Lord. As for this guy, I don't think he is qualified. Eagle Saint glanced at Yi Shiwen as if he was provoking him. His eyes were full of disdain. Anyway, they had already fallen out. There was no need to be particular. There were even more people who wanted to watch the show. They added fuel to the fire, making the matter bigger and bigger. Kid, what did you say? Eagle Saint immediately took a step forward and shouted. The entire starry sky instantly exploded. Although Eagle Saint was a little arrogant, he was indeed strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to challenge the Flame Lord. Previously, when he was advancing, he almost died tragically in the hands of the King of Assassins. Although he didn't know who hired them, it was definitely the work of the Demon Eagle clan. This was without a doubt. Now, he was just collecting some interest. Such a situation had happened a few times in the past few years. After all, nobody knew how much the Celestial clan had developed to this day. Perhaps there were spies of the Celestial clan among the higher-ups of the major forces. It was so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Countless people were present, but none of them made any loud noise. Everyone looked at Yi Shiwen with fear in their eyes. Yi Shiwen had lost his strength. According to the legends, he had beheaded many evildoers, but now it seemed that he was even more terrifying than the legends. I said that you're not qualified. How about this? I'll leave immediately if you can block even one of my fingers. Yi Shiwen sneered and said. It seemed as if he didn't care about the Hawk Sage at all. Of course, he had also heard that each force had a pure legion composed of the experts of their own forces. This was the real combat power in their hands. It was the most elite legion. As for this mixed legion, it seemed that the experts of various clans had been mobilized. It should be a gathering of elites. In fact, it was even more difficult to control because of this. Let's go since there are no objections. Why are we still wasting time? Yi Shiwen said. All right. Eagle Saint was already very angry with Yi Shiwen. He might have hesitated if Yi Shiwen had said that he wasn't a match for him. He might have looked uncouth, but he was actually a very astute person. How could he not have heard of Yi Shiwen's fierce name? However, Yi Shiwen had dared to say that he couldn't even block a finger of Yi Shiwen. If he endured this, then he would have no dignity in the future. It's not up to you to say whether I am qualified or not. However, I feel that you are definitely not qualified. Yi Shiwen stepped forward and said. He had crashed into half of the world when he had been sent flying. Countless armies had set out to battle. It was natural that they would move in a mighty manner. However, it was different this time. In order to launch a surprise attack, they didn't take the conventional route at all. Instead, they directly used the transmission array. The demonic claws formed by the Hawk Sage's demonic chi exploded in an instant, as if they were made of paper. They looked extremely weak. However, Yi Shiwen didn't panic. Then, he directly pointed his finger under everyone's gaze. Just like what he had said before, it wasn't even a finger technique. It was just a simple finger pointing. Bang! Woo woo woo! The horn of an unknown, ominous beast was blown. It was like a muffled thunder. It exploded in the entire universe, bringing about a shocking wave of air. The entire universe was shaking. The Flame Lord wasn't disgusted with Yi Shiwen's command. Originally, most kings weren't interested in leading an army except for some experts who were born to practice the way of war. After all, no matter how many troops there were, it wouldn't be as carefree as improving their strength. This strength was enough to lead an army alone, let alone being a deputy army commander. Eagle Saint's claw suddenly slashed towards Yi Shiwen. Terrifying demonic energy seeped out and shook the vast universe as the claw descended. One didn't even need to think to know what kind of deep hatred this was. With his strength, if someone had sent a message secretly, how could it be hidden from him? He landed on the ground and set off boundless dust. After that, he didn't move anymore. It was as if he was dead. The Flame Lord took the lead and took the lead. Yi Shiwen was responsible for holding the line. He would only leave after the last person had passed. He still needed to monitor the possible spies in this army. Someone had gone to scout early in the morning. They had also set up a transmission array. Then, they could use the transmission array to directly teleport to the vicinity of the stronghold. This was to prevent the enemy from escaping after receiving the news. Army Commander, we all know that you are from the Hidden Valley. It's normal for you to be biased towards the people of the Hidden Valley, said Eagle Saint with a cold smile. Although he spoke politely, he was actually harboring evil intentions. He had directly labeled the Flame Lord as a nepotistic. He might look like an uncouth old man, but he was actually a cunning person. Chapter 2665. One war beast after another lined up in the void. Each of them was as big as a star, and they were all ferocious beasts that were specially captured for war. Each of these war beasts was like a moving fortress, with terrifying power that swept in all directions. Even though this army wasn't the most top-notch, the most elite army, it was already enough. The scales were dense, extremely terrifying. Behind these war beasts, real war fortresses appeared one after another. Each of them was the size of a gigantic star. Their cold appearance gave off a terrifying aura that was vast and mighty. The entire universe was shaking violently. At the same time, many array masters began to move, setting up a spatial enchantment in the surrounding space to prevent the remnants of the Tian clan from escaping. Such a huge aura finally alarmed the remnants of the Tian clan in the stronghold. This is too terrifying. How can there be so many experts? Damn it. Our stronghold actually alarmed the encirclement of an entire legion. Many experts of the Tian clan were terrified. Although they claimed to be a race that ruled on behalf of the heavens, not everyone was the heavens. Encountering such a level of encirclement was simply like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. Everyone felt as if every pore of their body was filled with ice. Their bodies suddenly turned cold. Were they really going to die here? This battle is destined to be a bloodbath. Yi Shiwen, who was hiding in the army far away, looked at the battle that had already begun in front of him. Countless powerful warriors of various races rushed over. The array formations on the battle fortresses behind them exploded one after another. Endless energy turned into energy pillars that swept out, directly piercing through the concealment arrays of the Tian clan, revealing the true appearance of the stronghold. The entire stronghold was also formed from a series of huge worlds, but it was concealed by the array formation. These war beasts stepped on the beat of the drums and rushed in. At the same time, the Tian clan's array formations also began to counterattack. Waves of energy swept out, actually fighting against the allied forces of the various races. Swish! 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 Loud sounds of something tearing through the air could be heard. Arrows that were as thick as mountains shot out from the war fortresses, bringing with them an extremely terrifying might. They pierced through the sky and smashed into the Tian clan stronghold. Before the countless Tian clan experts could even react, they were actually pierced through by the arrow. At the same time, even more experts from various races swept towards the Tian clan's stronghold like a tide. All of them were divine archers. They all drew their bows, and a dense and endless rain of arrows rained down. It was unknown how many experts of the Tian clan were killed in one wave. Many of the Tian clan experts didn't even have time to react before they were turned into hedgehogs. This was the most terrifying part about them. The first line of defense could not stop the allied forces of the various races at all. Tens of thousands of cavalry swept past as the vanguard of the army. Clang, clang, clang. At this time, in the Tian clan's stronghold, the sound of bells continuously rang out, informing the Tian clan experts inside to come over. However, it was useless. Very quickly, the allied forces had already attacked the second line of defense. The first line of defense was simply too easy. It was as easy as blowing off dust. They had the advantage in strength, and they had also caught the Tian clan off guard. Many of the Tian clan experts who were still at the first line of defense were swept clean in time, not even leaving behind a single drop of blood essence. Among the experts of the various races, there were many who relied on devouring blood essence to advance. The Tian clan's first line of defense was mostly a defensive zone, but when they reached their second line of defense, many worlds had already appeared. These were all worlds that the ordinary clansmen of the Tian clan relied on to survive in, and now they were being destroyed one by one under the iron hooves. One world after another, the heavens fell and the earth cracked. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. The earth shattered, and the sky seemed to have been torn in half by some huge force. A world turned into dust in less than a quarter of an hour. This army was extremely terrifying. It had a terrifying, destructive power that ordinary people could not imagine. The Tian clan's defense line had not been organized yet, and all of the defenses were spontaneous. They would collapse upon contact and would not cause any trouble for them. It was as if the entire sky and earth were occupied by the allied forces of the various races. Even though Yi Shiwen was following behind, he still felt a surge of emotions. This was a completely different Great Tao from his usual battles, the Tao of war. What was the trend of the times? This was the trend of the times. Even a king-ranked martial artist would have to think twice if he wanted to stop such a trend. If he was not careful, he would have to pay a heavy price. Above these formations, everyone's body was emitting a strong blood aura. When they were entangled together, they formed something called the army's soul. This was something that a strong army needed. At the same time, in the distant rear, there were many warriors who were proficient in talismans, burning talismans in a frenzy. The power of these talismans would all be added to the frontline soldiers, making them even wilder and more terrifying. Perhaps it was because they had not experienced war for too long, but although the second line of defense had some fortifications, it was obviously not full. It could not stop the allied forces of the various races at all. Under the lead of tens of thousands of cavalry vanguards, they directly charged towards the third line of defense. Behind them, countless battle beasts and battle fortresses were also advancing crazily. Waves of terrifying energy swept across the sky, breaking through one array after another. They were simply like gods of destruction. The third line of defense was obviously much stronger than the first two lines of defense. It was already close to the core and elite areas of the Tian clan. The resistance there was suddenly much stronger, and many god-ranked experts had even appeared. Moreover, the Tian clan itself was a race of geniuses. There were no fools among them. They were all geniuses. Even an ordinary Tian clan member could cultivate to a very high level. After arriving here, the population suddenly became denser. Many commoners spontaneously began to resist the allied forces of the various races. However, the effect was not very obvious. Screams could be heard continuously. Compared to the various races who had been through many battles, there was still a big gap. Moreover, the experts of the allied forces of the various races also attacked. Even the other deputy army lords attacked at this time. With terrifying power, all resistance was suppressed. This was a massacre, a one-sided massacre. There was no way to resist at all. Roar! The figure of a huge, ferocious beast came out from the Tian clan's stronghold. This was a guardian beast of the Tian clan. It was very powerful and terrifying. When it reached the fourth line of defense, it finally met a decent resistance. Its body emitted an extremely terrifying aura. The vital energy it spat out was extremely poisonous. Many God-ranked experts who could not dodge in time were actually poisoned by the poisonous gas and were completely killed. And this ferocious beast was still constantly recovering, emitting a terrifying and blazing aura. This terrifying, ferocious beast finally stopped the invincible allied forces of the various races. Wherever it passed, flesh and blood flew everywhere. The warriors of the various races were simply wailing in pain. They were not a match for it at all. This was a ferocious beast that had already entered the king-ranked realm. This was the true foundation of the Tian clan. It was not something that outsiders could imagine. At this time, the Lord of Flames also stood up and said, "Junior brother, I will leave this place to you to command. I will go and meet this beast king." According to the information I received previously, the person in charge of this stronghold should be this beast king. Once he is killed, the remaining members of the Tian clan in this stronghold will be like a group of dragons without a leader. When that time comes, it will be much easier to deal with them. After the Lord of Flames finished speaking, he did not wait for Yi Shiwen to say anything else as he immediately disappeared. When he reappeared, he was actually in front of this beast king. In his hand, a flame suddenly rose up, illuminating the entire universe. Then, with a flip of his hand, this flame was immediately overturned. Then, as if this flame had been ignited, it started to burn crazily. These flames burned fiercely, forming a sea of fire that actually enveloped this beast king. Lord of Flames, I did not expect that even you have entered the king-ranked realm. This beast king's blood was surging, and the scales on its body stood up. Its body's magic power was surging as it actually wanted to use its magic power to forcefully extinguish the flames. If I remember correctly, not long ago, you should have participated in the battle against the Phoenix King. It's a pity that the tables have turned. It is now your turn to be surrounded and killed. The Lord of Flames had an astounding memory. He still remembered those people who had surrounded and killed the Phoenix King. That incident had shocked the entire world. Although the Hidden Valley had not been directly involved, they had still used various methods to understand what had happened. Otherwise, just the 12 heavenly generals alone would not have been able to hurt the Phoenix King, even if they had 10 times the number of people, much less kill the Phoenix King. That's right, you also know about this. Ha 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 ha. Isn't the Phoenix King known to be invincible? What happened in the end? This Beast King's face revealed a proud smile. Then, it pounced towards the Lord of Flames. Although it seemed like a simple movement, in reality, every movement was very peculiar. Every strike was very simple, but very powerful. Even with the Lord of Flames' strength, he actually felt a huge pressure. Bang! 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 Two powerful king-ranked martial artists were fighting in the heavens. As the battle escalated, both of them consciously avoided the others. Compared to the king-ranked martial artists, they were really too weak. The intense battle was hard to determine a victor. Suddenly, a huge hand reached out from the void, grabbed a treasure sword, and slashed it towards the Lord of Flames. "You lowly fellow! How dare you bully me with numbers?" A loud shout came from the various races' alliance army. Chapter 2666. How dare you bully me with numbers? A loud roar came from the alliance army. Yi Shiwen roared and attacked. His fists swept across the sky, shattering countless matrices. An elder stumbled out of the sky. He was still a little surprised. That fist force had almost killed him. If he had not reacted quickly enough, he would have been dead by now. He looked at Yi Shiwen again. Yi Shiwen was just a junior in the late stage of the Sage Plane, but he was able to unleash such combat power. Even in the Heavenly Clan, such a person was rare. He was an old antique who had survived from the last battle. It seemed that even in that era, such a person was rare. He steadied himself. His blood was threatening, and a terrifying aura burst from his withered body. Although he was skinny, he was more terrifying than expected. That withered body was like an invincible demon, standing tall. Many experts of the Allied forces felt an incomparably terrifying suppressive force pressing down on them. Even the Sage Plane Masters were no exception. This was the terror of king-ranked masters. Even if they were just standing there and did not attack, they still had a terrifying aura that was hard to resist. Ordinary people would not be able to deal with them. At that moment, the Master of Flames was fighting with that ferocious beast. He would not be able to do anything here. Everyone looked at Yi Shiwen. That attack had beaten the king-ranked masters into such a sorry state. It had become their last hope. Perhaps even a king-ranked master would not be able to stop such a powerful army. However, if a king-ranked master went crazy, the entire army might be heavily injured. They would suffer heavy losses. Yi Shiwen did not disappoint. He walked out and said loudly, "You don't have to worry about this. Kill your way in. Today, no one from the Heavenly Clan is allowed to leave. Kill them all. Leave this place to me." Younger generation, you are a bit too complacent. If the 10 great kings were to personally take action, there might still be a chance, but you want to act so viciously with just you? The Tian clan elder attacked coldly, his strength frightening. In the 10,000 domains, there had always been the so-called 10 great kings. They were the pinnacle of all the king-ranked realm martial artists. They were also the most powerful martial artists that everyone knew of in the 10,000 domains. Yi Shiwen did not know what other formidable martial artists were hiding in the shadows. However, on the surface, this was already a top-notch battle. There's no need for the top 10 kings to deal with you. You're just another old guy who's taking advantage of his seniority, Yi Shiwen said with a cold smile. Good lad, you have a sharp tongue. Today, I will show you that the power of a king-ranked realm cultivator is not something you can challenge. The old man from the Tian clan was expressionless as he instantly attacked. He punched out with one hand and turned into an azure dragon. It roared towards the sky and directly swooped down towards Yi Shiwen. His blood surged, and he actually turned into an azure dragon. This was not the usual azure dragon intent. He must have used some special secret technique. The azure dragon whizzed down, bringing with it a terrifying astral wind. Even the gods who were watching from afar were shocked. The frightening power tore everything apart, and no one dared to go near. Hell Dao! Yi Shiwen shouted loudly and blasted out a punch. The fist in tension twisted and transformed into a huge hell that devoured everything. All the wronged souls and wild ghosts were wailing unceasingly in it, but the aura it exuded was vast and mighty. Boom! The azure dragon directly entered the hell. With a flip, it killed countless vengeful spirits and malicious ghosts. However, it was useless. There were too many vengeful spirits and malicious ghosts in the hell. There was no way to kill them all. They were formed by Yi Shiwen's unparalleled mental strength. How could this azure dragon shake Yi Shiwen's profound strength? Dang, dang, dang. In such a collision, the old man from the Tian clan actually took a few steps back before he could barely stop himself. In the collision with Yi Shiwen, he actually suffered a small loss. As for Yi Shiwen, he didn't move at all. The space under his feet instantly collapsed. Obviously, he had already transformed all his strength into the void under his feet. Even the chaos could be seen collapsing. That's all you've got? Have you been living like a dog all these years? Yi Shiwen sneered. The old man from the Tian clan was shocked and bewildered. In the end, he sighed and said, "You must be that Yi Shiwen who has been in the limelight recently. I didn't expect that this time you would also participate." However, suddenly, the old man's expression changed. It became ferocious and joyful. Just in time, haha, I can kill a great enemy of my clan. I originally thought that I could only kill the Flame Master this time. I didn't expect that I would be able to draw another person to die with me. Yi Shiwen's expression suddenly changed. He immediately understood that there was an ambush. Old friends, all of you come out. This kid is very troublesome. It seems that I can't deal with him alone. The old man from the Tian clan said slowly. And just as the old man's voice fell, a few figures appeared around him. They saw a middle-aged man appear on an ancient chariot. This chariot was completely blood red and emitted a terrifying aura. War King. When this person appeared, the experts of the Tian clan cheered, and the morale of the allied forces of the various races dropped. Then, countless feathers floated in the void. A young man with 2 wings on his back that looked like an angel appeared. However, Yishuan could clearly feel that this aura was not that of an angel, nor was it a fallen angel. It was another kind of creature. This was very normal. In the world, many species looked similar. It was just like how many species looked extremely similar to the human race, but they were simply worlds apart from the human race. Feather King. It was another well-known existence on the side of the Tian clan. He had once fought against the experts of the various races and made an immortal name for himself. He was extremely terrifying. The void twisted like a vortex, and a figure slowly emerged from it. His entire body blended into the void. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see clearly whether there was a person or not. Void King. The arrival of these 3 kings caused the morale of the allied forces of the various races to drop again and again. They almost collapsed directly. Why were there so many experts here? Logically speaking, it was impossible. Although there might be a transmission array in the stronghold, they had already sealed all the space when they arrived. Even if there was a transmission array, it was impossible for the other party to teleport here. Then there was only one possibility, and that was that the other party had long been prepared and had been lying in ambush here. Thinking of this, everyone's morale collapsed even more. There was a traitor among them. This was even more devastating than encountering a strong enemy. Could it be that they couldn't escape this time? If the previous vicious Beast King was included, then it meant that the other party had 5 kings, and their side only had 2. The gap between the 2 sides could be seen from this. Just the right time to get rid of them all. If such people grow up, they might really become an obstacle for our race. King Feather laughed out loud and instantly made his move. Countless feathers instantly condensed into a treasured saber. The treasured saber exuded an immortal aura. In an instant, it sliced through the heavens and descended. The allied forces of the various races revealed a look of despair. This King Feather's strength could kill more than 1/10 of them with one saber strike. This was how terrifying a king-ranked realm martial artist was. Even if they joined forces, they could only kill one king-ranked realm martial artist at most. There were 5 powerful king-ranked realm martial artists here. Just as the saber slashed down, more feathers turned into huge hands and grabbed Yi Shiwen's legs tightly, pinning him firmly in the void. Yi Shiwen himself didn't move at all. Just as the saber light was about to kill him, he finally made his move. The sword and the stone swept out horizontally, creating a shocking sword aura. Countless sword Dao and stone Dao nomological laws turned into talismans and slashed down. The talismans slashed down fiercely, forming ripples of the great Dao. Boom! With a loud sound, a dazzling light exploded in the void. The saber light clashed with Yi Shiwen's sword light. The friction produced the most dazzling light, and the explosion of energy was swept out. Even the vast universe and the many gods found it hard to withstand such a terrifying attack. The sea of stars was reduced to ashes. This kind of unparalleled divine might was shocking. At that moment, many of the pinnacle sage plane martial artists understood the difference between them and king-ranked realm martial artists. It was like heaven and earth, and it was difficult to make up for. However, Yi Shiwen before them was clearly an exception. He was actually able to fight against a king-ranked realm martial artist. The energy waves dissipated with great difficulty, and the magic charms were also annihilated one after another. Only then did the 2 people appear in the arena. However, they saw that Feather King had unexpectedly retreated 2 steps. It seemed that he was no different from before. Yi Shiwen's strength was formidable and dreadful. This brat is indeed troublesome. For the sake of our race, we can't let him live, King Feather said through gritted teeth. He was slightly shocked when he attacked just now. This brat was already so difficult to deal with when he was only at the sage plane. What more when he became a king-ranked realm martial artist? Who would be able to stop him then? That's right, kill him. The war king roared. The chariot under his feet charged forward, emitting a vicious aura and blood-red light that swept through the sky. Every beam of blood-red light turned into a blood-red world, covering the sky and covering the earth. At that moment, the few King Realm martial artists had already made up their minds. They were going to team up and kill Yi Shiwen. They no longer cared about fighting one-on-one. Junior Brother Yi, the Lord of Flames, panicked. His opponents were 4 king-ranked martial artists. How could he not be afraid? However, the Beast King knew what this meant. Thus, he refused to let the Lord of Flames go even if he had to die. Instead, he held the Lord of Flames back. Chapter 26:67. The Lord of Flames was much stronger than this Beast King. Back then, the Lord of Flames was also a demon-level prodigy. If not, he would not have been able to take charge of the Hidden Valley for so many years. Thus, now that he had broken through to the king-ranked realm, he had to be much stronger than ordinary early-stage king-ranked realm martial artists. If he had more time, he might even be able to break through to the mid-stage king-ranked realm in one go. However, it would not be so easy to get rid of this Beast King. At the same time, he was terrified. If he had not suddenly sensed danger and went to look for Yi Shiwen, he would probably have died on the battlefield. 5 king-ranked realm martial artists. No matter how he thought about it, he would definitely die. As an invincible martial artist who had cultivated to his level, he naturally understood that it was impossible for there to be any unforeseen signs of danger. If there were any signs of uneasiness, it meant that he had missed something. Hence, he did not dare to underestimate Yi Shiwen. He had asked Yi Shiwen to be his helper. He had thought that 2 king-rank martial artists would be enough. Who would have thought that their opponents would have 5 king-rank martial artists? The 2 of them had fallen into the enemy's trap. Someone had tipped them off. Thus, he could only watch as Yi Shiwen fell into the attacks of the 4 king-ranked martial artists. Yi Shiwen, however, did not care. Although he had just broken through, he had accumulated a lot of experience. If not, he would not have been able to kill those demons. So there are so many king-rank martial artists here today. No wonder you all feel that you can defeat me. However, this is also a good thing. I will use you all to test my limits. Yi Shiwen said lightly. Using us to test your limits? Young one, you are too arrogant. The Heaven Race Elders suddenly shouted. Even if you are also a king-ranked martial artist, you are only one person. How can you be compared to us? What's the point of talking to him? Just kill him. If we kill this human prodigy, we can delay the rise of the human race by 100,000 years. The Battle King roared as the war chariot under his feet had already reached Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen raised his hand and suddenly punched his chariot. Bang! A deafening explosion sounded out as the war chariot's spirit screamed. It had to be known that in the past, it had been the one to send people flying, but now it had been forced to this point. Yi Shiwen took a step forward after forcibly stopping the Battle King's chariot. He only took one step, but he penetrated through the layers of space that the Battle King had used to protect himself. He arrived in front of the Battle King's main body and bombarded it with a punch. The fist force turned into the 6 paths of reincarnation, which formed a gigantic wheel that shattered everything in its path. In fact, one could even see a terrifying power being generated with the naked eye as it blasted out toward the Battle King. The Battle King was startled. He hadn't expected that Yi Shiwen's counterattack would be so ferocious. That terrifying aura had almost suffocated him. At this moment, Jiang Yi finally reacted. He was incomparably furious. Someone actually dared to treat him like this. This was practically trampling on his dignity as a king-ranked martial artist. At once, all the life essence in his body was burning, and his blood was tearing the heavens apart. Heaven-piercing spear, he shouted, and a spear appeared in his hand. It carried a blood-red aura, and it tore through the void as if it wanted to bury the entire universe into the endless void. At the crucial moment, after using his war chariot to block the most dangerous attack for him, his counterattack followed like a shadow. It could be said that he had already grasped all the opportunities to shatter everything in an instant, and it was about to pierce through Yi Shiwen. Bang! The heaven-piercing spear directly stopped in front of Yi Shiwen. It was actually the 10,000 method roulette that had completely blocked the heaven-piercing spear. This was undoubtedly the highest form of irony. The 10,000 method roulette that had fought for the heavenly clan in the past and made great contributions had now become Yi Shiwen's protective talisman. At the instant of the collision, the 10,000 method roulette directly transformed into countless gods, and each god was evolving a supreme, holy technique. Then, these god-level ancient techniques condensed and formed a terrifying attack that swept out in an instant. Boom! The War King was swept away, and half of his body was directly swept away. It instantly collapsed, and golden blood splattered out. The terrifying might of the 10,000 method roulette could already be seen at this moment. It had both offensive and defensive capabilities, and its power was boundless. Otherwise, the 10,000 method king wouldn't have been able to rely on the 10,000 method roulette to be invincible in the past. Even the sky was collapsing with a rumbling sound. Countless experts of the Tian clan cried out in alarm. In front of everyone's eyes, half of the War King's body was actually blown up. The sound that was emitted was like a devil's voice. It was unbearable. Swish! While everyone was still immersed in shock, a figure appeared beside Yi Shiwen. The power of origin erupted, and the void shook violently. Then it began to collapse crazily. This was the most terrifying attack method of the space law. As long as one was still in this space, it would be impossible for any living creature to survive if this space collapsed. Yi Shiwen's eyes lit up. At the critical moment, when Yi Shiwen was planning to continue attacking, the Void King took the initiative to attack first. Yi Shiwen clearly felt that it wasn't only the main space that had been sealed. Even the other spaces had been sealed. They had collapsed under the influence of a dreadful force. This was obviously done to block his escape route, so that he wouldn't have the slightest opportunity to escape. A power that could shatter the void transformed into a law that tore at his body. It seemed as if it wanted to tear his body apart. However, Yi Shiwen didn't move. His golden body bloomed with blazing light, and he was like a great emperor walking in the human world. The power of the space collapse couldn't do anything to him. Yi Shiwen sneered. If his gilded tyrant form could be torn apart so easily, then he would have been dead for countless years. Swish! With a sharp sound, the stone sword suddenly appeared in Yi Shiwen's hand. He swung the sword, and the sword light turned into stone energy, petrifying everything. The Void King suddenly turned pale with fright. Compared to the legendary stone sword, Yi Shiwen's stone sword was stronger. Perhaps it should be said that he exerted a more tyrannical power. The ordinary stone sword emitted stone energy that could petrify a star. This kind of power was already very amazing, but Yi Shiwen seemed to have exerted the stone sword to another extreme realm. Not to mention the whole planet. Even the plane itself and the power of space itself would be frozen by his stone energy. This was the most terrifying thing about him. He retreated all the way and constantly released the space law to resist, but he found that it was constantly eroded by the stone energy. He couldn't believe it. In fact, the space law was almost one of the most terrifying laws. It was only under the most mysterious time law. Time plus space was the core and foundation of the entire universe. But now he discovered that if the stone law could be exerted to the peak, it could also exert such amazing power. In comparison, Wu Zimo and others were not his opponent at all. They were not on the same level at all. Some inconspicuous nomological laws were able to display shocking power in the hands of some top almighty beings. Yi Shiwen undoubtedly had such a means. Kid, don't be too arrogant. Feather King attacked at the right time. The saber light was like a river of stars, slashing down from the sky. The aura of destruction spread from the saber light, as if an invincible person was hiding in the long saber, waiting to be resurrected. It released blazing light and all kinds of terrifying aura. Mind your own business. Don't worry, it's your turn soon. Yi Shiwen sneered. He flipped his palm, and a mirror immediately appeared in front of him. Then, a shocking blood-red light burst out of it and blocked the long blade. Clang! The saber light ruthlessly slashed at the Tianyuan mirror, but it only created waves of fluctuations. It couldn't break the Tianyuan mirror's defense at all. There was no doubt that it was another extremely terrifying top-grade divine tool. The kings were a little depressed. Yi Shiwen had too many treasures on him, and every one of them was extremely powerful. More importantly, there was the 10,000 spell roulette, a legendary divine tool that should have been the pride of the celestial race. But in the end, it became the root of their advancement. Boom! The blood light on the Tianyuan mirror exploded, forming a blood pillar that shot towards Feather King. Feather King retreated again and again, not daring to face it head-on. On the other side, Yi Shiwen was aggressive. He directly rushed to the side of the Void King and slashed down with his sword. Puff! The Void King was slashed, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His whole body was sent flying. Although he was known as the Void King and had an unreachable understanding of the way of space, he was able to escape at the speed of tearing space. But when the space was frozen, his speed was not worth mentioning. He couldn't escape Yi Shiwen's attack at all. Kill. Let's join hands and kill him. We can't let him continue to grow. The celestial race old man quickly shouted. When the other two heard this, they quickly attacked at the same time. The three of them formed a joint force. At this time, they could also see that one of them was not Yi Shiwen's opponent. It would take 3 or even 4 of them to defeat Yi Shiwen. Even if it was dishonorable, they had no other choice. One could imagine how ferocious the attack of the 3 kings was. The void instantly collapsed and turned into chaos. It was as if they had returned to the time when the world was created, and the earth, water, fire, and wind were reborn. Then all kinds of laws evolved again. Even if an extremely powerful and unprepared person was hit by this attack, he would still be in a situation where he would die. Facing these attacks, Yi Shiwen's body shook, and his body shone with golden light. He was like a Buddha, but also like a deity chanting sutras. Then he slashed with his sword. The Avicii sword appeared. Boom! The Avicii sword's blood-red sword light swept everything, annihilating everything. Puff! 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 The 3 kings spat out a mouthful of blood and were sent flying. Chapter 26:68. Kill him! The roars of these kings who were sent flying reverberated throughout the entire universe. They were sent flying with just one strike. The power of the Avicii sword was evident. How can he be so powerful? I don't believe it. Even a true king-ranked expert can't be so powerful. Fight it out with him. It doesn't matter how powerful he is. We have so many of us. The 4 powerful kings' eyes were bloodshot. So many of them had joined hands to set up an inescapable net. In the end, they couldn't even defeat Yi Shiwen alone. This was not the result they wanted. The old man from the heavenly tribe spat out a mouthful of essence chi, which instantly transformed into a huge ship that traversed the universe. It directly crossed the entire universe and crashed into Yi Shiwen. The feathers on Feather King's body instantly exploded and turned into a long saber. It cut the stars in the universe in half. He used all his strength to fight and wanted to kill Yi Shiwen. The war chariot under the Battle King's feet rushed forward crazily, turning the world under his feet into one battlefield after another. Countless battlefield spirits appeared on the battlefield. On the other hand, the Void King took out a talisman. The talisman was engraved with terrifying runes that no one could understand. There seemed to be a powerful force covering it. It was an extremely ancient rune. It was a talisman left behind by a legendary imperial emperor. This rune was a Dao rune created by that imperial emperor. If one could decipher it, they would be able to comprehend the endless secret techniques left behind by that imperial emperor. Yi Shiwen stood tall in the void. They were already very far away from the place where the battle was taking place on the other side. 5 tyrannical king-level experts had erupted their fighting strength at the same time. One didn't even need to think about it to know how dreadful it would be. Neither side was willing to display their skills on the battlefield because there would always be people on their side. He looked coldly at the attacks coming towards him. Tens of thousands of Dharma roulette continued to rotate above his head. Countless spells burst out from the rotation. The aura became stronger and more terrifying. At this moment, all the attacks had already rushed towards him. Rumble. This time, none of the kings held back. They knew very well how terrifying this young man was. They might not be his match even if they used all their strength, let alone being merciful. It was simply terrifying. All the attacks landed on the 10,000 Dharma roulette. Facing the crazy attacks of 4 king-ranked experts, even the 10,000 Dharma roulette trembled a little. However, even more tyrannical spells burst out from the 10,000 Dharma roulette. All the attacks and spells were restrained. The true power of the 10,000 Dharma roulette was unleashed. Continue attacking. I don't believe that he can hold on for long, the Tianclen old man said somewhat crazily. At this moment, they had already been forced into a dead end by Yi Shiwen. They had no choice but to defeat Yi Shiwen. All the attacks were still going on, but Yi Shiwen acted as if he didn't see it and remained indifferent, letting these celestial race experts attack the 10,000 method roulette. Ah! An extremely miserable scream came from the 10,000 spell roulette, and then a huge shadow jumped out of it, trying to escape into the distance. However, Yi Shiwen finally made his move at this time. A big hand suddenly grabbed out, and this virtual shadow was caught alive and destroyed. What? What is this? That's the 10,000 Dharma roulette's tool spirit. At this time, the 4 experts realized what was going on. They had actually made a wedding dress for Yi Shiwen. They could already be considered as the group of people who stood at the pinnacle of the universe. There was nothing they had not seen before. Now that they saw this, how could they not be able to tell? Yi Shiwen clearly borrowed their power to force out the 10,000 Dharma roulette's tool spirit, and then killed it. This way, there wouldn't be any obstacles for Yi Shiwen to completely control the 10,000 Dharma roulette. Thinking that they had become tailors and made a wedding dress for someone else, the 4 of them felt like vomiting blood. Yi Shiwen smiled. Their guess was right. In fact, this was the truth. The 10,000 Dharma roulette had always been hiding a bit of tool spirit. It was just that his cultivation wasn't high enough in the past, so he didn't discover it. Hence, it had always been a problem for him to control the 10,000 Dharma roulette. Now, with the help of a few king-ranked experts, it was forced out and killed in one fell swoop. Now, it's time for you to die. Yi Shiwen sneered. The 10,000 Dharma roulette was now completely under his control. He took a step forward and directly rushed towards the Heavenly Tribe's old man. The Heavenly Tribe's old man almost immediately felt the terrifying aura of the 10,000 Dharma roulette. He already remembered many legends about the 10,000 Dharma roulette. His eyes turned crimson. He was going all out. There was no other way but to fight now. An incomparably huge sea of bitterness instantly appeared around him. The entire sea of bitterness was boundless, and the raging waves were tens of thousands of zhang high. It was enough to completely obliterate everything. And in this sea of bitterness, he piloted a huge ship and rampaged. But Yi Shiwen was expressionless. Under his control, the 10,000 Dharma roulette flew out, and a torrent of thousands of spells condensed and bombarded. The 2 terrifying attacks collided, creating an eternal light. Although the giant ship of bitterness was tyrannical, it wasn't as tyrannical as the 10,000 Dharma roulette. Countless spells restrained the giant ship of bitterness counterattack. Boom! The spell torrent completely submerged the Heavenly Tribe's old man. More than half of his body was completely smashed by the spell torrent. He struggled to escape into the distance, but how could Yi Shiwen give him another chance? The Avicii sword instantly shot out, and a sword light tore through the sky. Ah! With a scream, the Heavenly Tribe's old man was instantly killed. A king-ranked expert's flesh and blood was completely swallowed by the demon-summoning banner. Yi Shiwen's ferocity made the other Heavenly Tribe's experts want to retreat. This kid is so ferocious. Are we going to let him grow and become a huge threat to our tribe? At that moment, King Feather roared, and the countless feathers on his body fluttered. He rushed to Yi Shiwen's back and slashed down with his saber. His opportunity was very accurate. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that Yi Shiwen was out of breath after killing the Heavenly Tribe's old man. He wanted to severely injure Yi Shiwen at this time. Boom! This saber slashed directly into Yi Shiwen's body, and he finally found an excellent opportunity. However, only a faint white mark appeared on Yi Shiwen's body. It couldn't even break his skin, let alone injure him. Impossible! Even if a king-ranked expert was hit by my saber, he would still die. You can't be an exception. King Feather suddenly turned pale with fright. He did not expect that his attack could not even break through Yi Shiwen's defenses. If I had not broken through yet, this saber might have taken my life. However, I am still far from it. Yi Shiwen shouted as he took a step forward. The sword in the stone suddenly appeared in his hand, and he slashed down. King Feather only had time to use the wings on his back to cover his entire body. However, before he could react, Yi Shiwen's sword had already struck him. Feather King's entire body began to disintegrate. His two wings disintegrated in a split second, revealing his true body. Yi Shiwen's sword momentum didn't reduce in the slightest and directly chopped off his head. Golden blood spurted everywhere. King Feather struggled to escape. Although his head had been cut off, to a king-ranked expert, this was not considered fatal. Yi Shiwen's sword did not manage to destroy his primordial spirit. Every cell in his body could be reborn into a complete body. It was very difficult to kill him. However, how could Yi Shiwen give him any chance to escape? He used the Avicii sword and slashed King Feather's body into two. King Feather's body was instantly destroyed, and his primordial spirit was destroyed. The Avicii sword was indeed very powerful. Even a king-ranked expert's primordial spirit was destroyed after being struck by this sword. This was something that Jiang Yi could not do even with the sword in the stone. He had to expend a lot of energy to destroy King Feather's primordial spirit. However, with the Avicii sword, just the Avicii sword's ferocious aura alone was enough to kill a king-ranked expert. Even a king-ranked expert would not be able to escape death. At this moment, the tides of the battle had turned. The Alliance Army's morale was greatly boosted. This was a miracle. They had thought that they had no chance of survival. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen would be so powerful? Against 4 king-ranked experts, he had actually killed 2 of them. This kind of strength was enough to shock the heavens and earth. Let's go! At this moment, the Battle King and the Void King did not have any intention to fight anymore. They were almost scared to death by Yi Shiwen. It was not that they had never seen fierce king-ranked experts before. However, they had never seen such a fierce Sage Realm martial artist. If they allowed him to ascend to the king-ranked realm, that would be terrible. Although they still had such worries in their hearts, it was more important for them to escape now. As for Yi Shiwen, he would naturally alert even more powerful heavenly race experts to deal with him. The 2 of them were shocked and wanted to escape. As for the other heavenly race members, they could not be bothered with them anymore. Trying to escape? Set up the formation. Yi Shiwen shouted. Suddenly, a strong aura appeared around them. A few of them were also king-ranked experts. Although they could feel that they were much weaker than the 2 of them, with so many king-ranked experts appearing at this moment, the 2 of them almost lost all hope. The entire formation suddenly turned into stars. Countless starlight shone down from the skies far away. The entire formation began to move slowly, looking extremely majestic. This was the heavenly cycle star formation that had once shocked the world in the ancient heavenly court. Chapter 2669. This array was created by 998 kings. Its power was unparalleled. It was said that it could even resist the attacks of Thearchs. The heavenly cycle star array that Yi Shiwen had created was definitely not comparable to the legendary heavenly cycle star array that could resist Thearchs. However, it was more than enough to trap 2 king-ranked realm formidable martial artists. However, this was also a method that Yi Shiwen had just comprehended. He was able to control the demon kings to create the heavenly cycle star array. Countless power of the stars turned into beams of starlight that struck down. This was using the power of the entire universe. Even Thearchs could be restrained, much less king-ranked realm formidable martial artists. When they were fighting just now, Yi Shiwen had already asked the demon kings to arrange this heavenly cycle star formation. At that time, the battle was in full swing, so they did not realize that these demon kings had already arranged this heavenly cycle star formation unknowingly. The battle monarch and the void monarch kept dodging, but the starlight in the sky was getting stronger and stronger. The power of the stars was getting denser and denser. It kept striking their bodies. Perhaps it was just one or two, and it was not enough to shake their defenses. However, when millions of starlight struck at the same time, it was like a starry sky falling. The battle monarch and the void monarch tried to break through the heavenly cycle star array. They could only defend where they were. The battle monarch roared, "Kill the world!" At that moment, he was firmly in the center of the heavenly cycle star array. It was as if he had become one with the entire universe. He wanted to fight with the heavenly cycle star array for control of heaven and earth. He was actually going to counterattack. He stabbed his spear at Yi Shiwen, who was chasing behind him. This spear seemed like it was going to pierce through the sky. The sun, moon, and stars. Heaven and earth reversed. Yi Shiwen did not dodge. Instead, he punched forward. 6 paths of reincarnation. Everything has to enter reincarnation. You guys going too? The fist and the battle spear collided violently. Suddenly, heaven and earth shook violently. A terrifying force exploded from the collision. Bang! The battle spear in the battle monarch's hand was sent flying. His entire arm was suddenly turned into dust. There was a look of horror on his face because Yi Shiwen had actually chased after him and charged straight into the heavenly cycle star formation. Yi Shiwen's fist blasted down directly towards his chest. At this moment, the Void King finally reacted. He slashed out endless space power in an attempt to rescue Yi Shiwen from Yi Shiwen's hands. It would be easy as long as Yi Shiwen was fine. Otherwise, if he was the only king left, it would be equivalent to seeking his own death. Bang! His attacks were completely blocked by the 10,000 spell roulette, and all of them were thoroughly dissolved and turned into nothingness. On the other side, Yi Shiwen's attack had already arrived. A blood light leaped out of his body. It was the Tianyuan mirror that had smashed down and directly bombarded the Battle King. Immediately, cracks appeared all over the War King's body. It shattered inch by inch as he was struck by a terrifying power. There was also a blood-red power wreaking havoc within him, not giving him a chance to recover. Such a situation made the Void King's scalp numb. He frantically tore the space apart and wanted to escape from this place. At this moment, he had no intention of assisting the Battle King at all. Sure enough, when he turned around, he saw Yi Shiwen slashing down with the Avicii sword in his hand. The Avicii sword slashed down thousands of miles of sword light. It was like a blood-red galaxy that slashed down and ruthlessly landed on the Battle King's body. The Battle King's divine monarch body could not withstand such a crazy attack. It directly collapsed and was swallowed by the demon calling banner. At this moment, Yi Shiwen's gaze finally turned to the Void King, and he fiercely pounced over. The Void King immediately stopped escaping. It was impossible to break the heavenly cycle star formation in a short period of time. The only way now was to get rid of the culprit, Yi Shiwen. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to escape. The Void King spat out a mouthful of spirit energy, which directly turned into a character in the sky. The characters on this character were extremely simple and unadorned. It was an ancient character that Yi Shiwen had never seen before. Emptiness. The Void King's emptiness was the origin of all the techniques and martial arts in his life. He accidentally obtained this emptiness when he was young. He used this emptiness to the extreme, and his cultivation soared crazily all the way. Only then did he finally achieve the illustrious name of the Void King. This was his innate technique. If he wasn't forced into a dead end, he would never use such a technique because if he was injured, it would truly injure the source of his life. However, there was no other way at this time. Yi Shiwen was too fierce, and he had no other means to deal with him. Facing this emptiness, Yi Shiwen's face did not have the slightest look of fear. On the contrary, there was a hint of joy on his face. Just nice, I want this emptiness! Exclamation point. Yi Shiwen knew that the emptiness in the emptiness meant space. It was precisely because of this that he had to have it. One must know that his current demon wings had already been cultivated to the peak of the third layer, light wings. However, he was still one step away from truly transforming into the ultimate space wings. He knew that he was lacking in the understanding of space. Although he had cultivated to this level, and his understanding of space was far beyond the imagination of ordinary people, he was still somewhat lacking if he wanted to condense the space wings. However, if he had the help of this emptiness, his space wings could almost be said to be completed immediately. An incomparably huge thunder word appeared on his body, forming an indomitable thunder giant. This was the thunder word that he obtained back then. It collided with this emptiness word in the universe. This was the collision of two terrifying understandings. At this time, the two were competing in the source. A terrifying mushroom cloud spread out from the collision of the two forces. Puff! The Void King spouted a mouthful of blood. Golden blood sprayed out and splattered everywhere. He retreated again and again. He suffered a great loss in such a collision of the source. He never expected that Yi Shiwen actually had such a method. He actually also had an original Taoist text. The power was probably not inferior to the emptiness word that he obtained. However, Yi Shiwen did not move at all, as if the attack just now did not cause any threat to him at all. He directly stretched out a big hand and suddenly grabbed towards the emptiness word. Then, he grabbed the emptiness word in his hand. The emptiness word tried to struggle, but it was useless. How is this possible? I don't know how much time and energy I spent to subdue this emptiness word back then. How can you grab it so quickly? Said the Void King in disbelief. Who do you think you are to be compared with me? Yi Shiwen sneered and did not say much. He just began to refine this emptiness word. Boom! This emptiness word suddenly exploded. The big hand that he was grabbing was blown into pieces. It turned out that the Void King had completely exploded the spirit that he entrusted in the emptiness word. He wanted to use this method to severely injure Yi Shiwen. Even if he could not obtain it, he could not let Yi Shiwen obtain it. Stupid, this method is completely useless against me. The smoke and dust dispersed, and Yi Shiwen's body appeared in front of everyone unscathed. Above his head, the Tianyuan mirror and the 10,000 spell roulette directly blocked all the aftermath of the explosion. However, they only shattered his big hand made of spirit energy. Swish! Without the spirit control of the Void King, that emptiness word regained its freedom. It wanted to escape, but it was useless. Yi Shiwen directly grabbed that emptiness word in his hand again. However, at this time, the Void King had no way to affect Yi Shiwen. At this time, he could not even take care of himself. Without the emptiness word as the original source, his strength had plummeted. It was not comparable to his previous strength at all. The heavenly cycle star formation continued to operate. Very quickly, the Void King screamed in pain as he was blasted into pieces. Countless heavenly cycle stars struck him. Even a king-rank martial artist would not be able to withstand such an attack. Then, the heavenly cycle stars formation immediately disappeared. Many demon kings were satisfied. After devouring a lot of flesh and blood, they returned to the demon beckoning banner. Such a great heavenly cycle star formation was very powerful. However, its consumption was also frighteningly high. Yi Shiwen didn't dare to use it for a long time. Otherwise, he would go bankrupt even with his family's wealth. At this time, Yi Shiwen did not care so much. He began to refine that emptiness word talisman. He wanted to refine it into his body. At this time, that Tian clan Beast King was shocked. How would he dare to stay? The other 4 helpers had died in Yi Shiwen's hands. How could he be a match for Yi Shiwen alone? However, the Lord of Flames would not give him such a chance. Originally, it was that Beast King who wanted to hold the Lord of Flames back. Now, the tables were turned. The Lord of Flames was holding the Beast King back. Now, the outcome was set. As long as Yi Shiwen refined that emptiness word talisman, he would be able to finish off this Beast King. At this time, the Alliance army seemed to have been injected with adrenaline. They were brave and silent, seeing Yi Shiwen's godly prowess. Even the God King whom they thought could not be defeated had died in his hands. What's more, Yi Shiwen had effortlessly killed the God King. It could be said that the biggest obstacle had been cleared. All that was left was to kill the enemies and earn military merits. On the other hand, the morale of the Tian clan side had plummeted. They were fleeing madly. No one was willing to stay. Under such circumstances, the monkeys would scatter when the tree fell. Suddenly, a blinding light came from the universe. It was emitted from Yi Shiwen's body. His body had an additional indescribable aura. Chapter 2670. From Yi Shiwen's body, layers of invisible waves were emitted. The entire universe started to tremble violently. As if he was undergoing a sublimation, the pair of wings on Yi Shiwen's back gradually disappeared as if they had been absorbed into space. Swish! In the blink of an eye, Yi Shiwen had already disappeared from everyone's sight. When he reappeared, he was already in front of that Beast King. Yi Shiwen had appeared too quickly. Or rather, it was too strange. That Beast King did not even sense any spatial fluctuations before he was already right in front of it. Yi Shiwen had not even made a move when a terrifying spatial power formed a crack in the void and slashed down. This Beast King did not even have time to react. Its entire body and the surrounding space were torn into pieces like a painting. Countless pieces of flesh and blood splattered everywhere as they tried to reform themselves in the sky. However, it was useless. Yi Shiwen immediately waved his demon-summoning banner and opened his mouth wide as he swallowed this Beast King whole. Compared to when he was dealing with the other Beast Kings earlier, it was much easier. The Lord of Flames looked at Yi Shiwen with a complicated expression. It seemed as if it had not recovered from the shock. Junior brother Yi is stronger than before. This was the only thought left in the Lord of Flames' mind. With his cultivation level, he could easily tell that Yi Shiwen's entire body seemed to be transforming. When Yi Shiwen had rushed over earlier, even the Lord of Flames had not been able to react, much less the Beast King. Yi Shiwen's understanding of space had reached a whole new level. After these king-rank martial artists had all been killed by Yi Shiwen, the remaining heavenly race martial artists were also defeated. They no longer had any intention of continuing the battle. Immediately, they crumbled, especially since Yi Shiwen seemed to still be experimenting with his space wings. He charged at the front of the army. Countless resurrection arrays swept out energy torrents, but they were all absorbed by his body. There was not a single bit of energy spilling out. Everywhere Yi Shiwen passed, he kept flapping his space wings and slashing out with spatial power. The heavenly race survivors' line of defense started to crumble. One world after another was scorched by the flames of war. In the end, Yi Shiwen simply relied on the ability of the wings of space to directly jump into the stronghold of the Tian clan. The celestial race had been operating this stronghold for many years. They had left behind many divine materials. However, by the time Yi Shiwen arrived, most of the treasure house had been emptied. It seemed that they were planning to evacuate. Regardless of whether the ambush was a success or failure, this stronghold would definitely be exposed, and it would not be able to hold on for long. Therefore, the number of treasures that fell into Yi Shiwen's hands wasn't as many as he had imagined. However, he still made a fortune. What is this? Where does this world-breaking talisman lead to? Yi Shiwen discovered that the most valuable things in the entire treasury had already been moved away. Only this boundary-breaking talisman was slightly interesting after he had swept through the treasury once. This wasn't an ordinary boundary-breaking talisman. It was a directional boundary-breaking talisman. Could it be a boundary-breaking talisman that led to the other strongholds of the Tian clan? This kind of boundary-breaking talisman was very difficult to create. It was much more precious than a directional teleportation array. Furthermore, this boundary-breaking talisman was divided into two types, directional and non-directional. The non-directional boundary-breaking talisman was usually used to tear apart solid space and escape or chase after enemies. The directional boundary breaking talisman was basically used for long-distance teleportation. Yi Shiwen kept the boundary breaking talisman first. If he had the chance in the future, he would try to find out what kind of place it was. As all the king-ranked realm experts were killed by Yi Shiwen, the battle also came to an end. What was left was a one-sided massacre and a cleanup of the battlefield. Senior brother, since these people have been dealt with, I shall not stay any longer. I'm leaving first. The Lord of Flames quickly charged in. Yi Shiwen knew that he wouldn't be of much use. This was an unprecedented victory. It could be said that he had dealt a heavy blow to the arrogance of the Tian clan. He had gained a lot from this trip and didn't want to compete with the Lord of Flames for any credit. I have to thank Junior Brother for this matter. If you hadn't acted personally, I might have really died this time. The Lord of Flames said sincerely. Even now, he still had a lingering fear in his heart. It's nothing. Is there a need to say such things between brothers? However, this operation has actually been leaked. I think there might be a traitor within the army. No, I should say that there might even be traitors among the higher-ups. Yi Shiwen said. It was obvious that the other party had been prepared. It didn't seem like they had suddenly received the news just before the operation began. Instead, they must have known about this a long time ago. To be able to find out about this operation a long time ago, they were probably not ordinary people. Perhaps the higher-ups in the army or even the Alliance army had leaked the secret. I have to get to the bottom of this when I get back. It's really too dangerous. If we were to all die this time, we wouldn't be able to explain ourselves. The Lord of Flames' face was dark. This incident had taught him a very deep lesson. Everything here has been settled. There's no need to trouble Junior Brother. Junior Brother, you can go back first. Then, I shall take my leave. After Yi Shiwen finished speaking, his entire body slowly merged into the void. When he appeared again, he was already hundreds of thousands of miles away. He had gained a lot from this trip. In particular, the mastery of the Wings of Space had increased his strength by a lot. With just the Wings of Space alone, Yi Shiwen's strength was not to be underestimated. The Wings of Demon wasn't just a movement technique. At the same time, it was also a martial art that had both offensive and defensive capabilities. It was very powerful. Suddenly, his eyelids twitched violently. An extremely bad feeling came from his heart. He abruptly stopped in his tracks. Right in front of him, the space seemed to have been sliced apart by something sharp. It was extremely terrifying, and countless strands of primordial chaos poured out from within. There was a great master ambushing him. Yi Shiwen's heart suddenly jumped. He immediately understood that there was a great master ambushing him here. The surrounding environment suddenly changed. It became an endless demon world. It was forcefully transformed. Who is ambushing me here? Yi Shiwen shouted. At the same time, his divine senses probed out, trying to find the ambusher. He had an extreme uneasiness in his heart. Although the ambusher didn't show up, it gave him a great sense of oppression. It was obvious that it wasn't an ordinary king. Rip! The entire space was directly torn apart. A terrifying power crazily rushed down, grabbing towards Yi Shiwen. Whoosh! Yi Shiwen waved the Wings of Space behind him at the critical moment. He dodged this fatal blow. However, such attacks were continuous. There was no time to stop. There was a king of the demon race involved. However, even Yi Shiwen couldn't detect anything. The entire formation isolated all auras. He could only determine a little bit of things. This king of the demon race was much stronger than the kings that Yi Shiwen had encountered before. Moreover, he had ambushed Yi Shiwen here. That was why he was in such a difficult situation. Countless thoughts flashed through Yi Shiwen's mind. To be able to appear here at this time and know that he was going back, it must be the higher-ups of the Alliance army. Otherwise, no one else could know his whereabouts. He was even more convinced that there was a traitor. He was afraid that this traitor's position in the Alliance army was not low. However, from the attributes of the martial arts, he could only determine that it was a king of the demon race. He couldn't sense anything else. No, I'm really going to be exhausted to death like this. Yi Shiwen used all his means. Only the Avicii sword could pose a slight threat to the formation. However, it couldn't completely break the formation. Moreover, there was a terrifying king of the demon race waiting behind the formation. If not for this array formation, Jiang Yi was confident that he could escape even if a peak-stage king-ranked king realm martial artist surrounded him with his wings of space. However, this array formation isolated the entire space. Even Jiang Yi's wings of space could not tear it apart. Someone was constantly reinforcing the space around it. Yi Shiwen immediately gritted his teeth. He couldn't fight with the opponent. Otherwise, he would fall into the opponent's trap. The formation was getting smaller and smaller. It was like the rope around his neck was getting tighter and tighter. He flipped his palm, and the boundary-breaking talisman appeared. It was the boundary-breaking talisman that he obtained from the Tian clan's treasure house. It's all up to you now. Yi Shiwen spread his spiritual power into the boundary-breaking talisman. Immediately, the boundary-breaking talisman bloomed with dazzling light. A space channel that was as tall as a person appeared in front of him. Yi Shiwen immediately stepped out and rushed into the space channel without hesitation. What? Outside the formation, a group of black shadows couldn't help but change his expression when he saw this scene. He had used all his means and set up layers of traps. In the end, he still managed to escape. How could he be happy about this? At this time, Yi Shiwen rushed into the space channel. He only felt that the surrounding space was shaking violently. When he reacted again, he had already appeared in another world. A strong spiritual energy came to his face. Looking around, there was a beautiful scenery. It was a blessed land. Where the hell is this world? Why is there such a strong spiritual energy? Yi Shiwen was a little hesitant. This was a very large world, but the spiritual energy was frighteningly abundant. It wasn't worse than many caves and blessed lands. He opened the eyes of redemption and looked into the distance. In an instant, he could see millions of miles away. He could vaguely see the outline of a huge city appearing in front of him. Chapter 2671. Even though Yi Shiwen was far away, he could still see an incomparably huge city wall appearing in front of him. Where is this place? Yi Shiwen frowned slightly. He had chosen to activate the boundary-breaking talisman in order to avoid the pursuit of the powerful king previously. However, it was obvious that he had transmigrated to a place that he had never been to before. He was worried about such a situation before, so he planned to study it carefully. As a result, he was directly transported here before he could study it. Fortunately, it was not an extremely dangerous environment. No matter what, let's take a look first and figure out what this place is, Yi Shiwen said as he rushed forward. With Yi Shiwen's speed, it only took a moment for him to approach this big city. The entire city wall was incomparably huge. It was unknown how many miles long it was. It was at least thousands of feet high, directly towering into the clouds. The clouds could only linger on the city wall. One could imagine how huge it was. Yi Shiwen had just approached it when he discovered that he was being rejected. A kind of terrifying power of the mortal world swept out and crushed his body. This is the aura of the Sky Clan. Yi Shiwen immediately felt that this power of the mortal world was mixed with the aura of the Sky Clan. That kind of aura was incompatible with the existence of the 10,000 races in the universe. It was completely like a creature from another world. There had always been a lot of rumors about the Sky Clan. Some rumors said that the Sky Clan was a creature that crossed over from another chaotic universe. Some people also said that the Sky Clan was actually a remnant of the previous universe civilization, witnessing the destruction and rebirth of the universe. In short, the Sky Clan was a completely different kind of creature from the current 10,000 races in the universe. Unless there was a disguise, as long as one approached, one could clearly feel the difference. He immediately thought that this world was probably an unknown world occupied by the remnants of the Sky Clan. The boundary-breaking talisman was simply specially prepared to travel to this world. At this time, he completely understood that this was probably an unknown world occupied by the remnants of the Sky Clan. The boundary-breaking talisman was simply specially prepared to travel to this world. At this time, he completely understood that this was the purpose of the boundary-breaking talisman. It was to be able to locate here. Sure enough, It was a beautiful cultivation paradise. However, for such a paradise to remain undiscovered for such a long time, the celestial race had hidden themselves too deeply. Fortunately, he had discovered it. Otherwise, who knew how long it would take for it to be discovered? After a slight pause, Yi Shiwen operated the ruler's sword technique and instantly erupted with the aura of the heaven race. The power of the mortal world didn't reject him, and Yi Shiwen was able to smoothly enter the city. At a glance, he could see the experts of the Tian clan everywhere. The Tian clan was worthy of being called a race blessed by the heavens. Almost everyone he saw was at least at the profound realm or above. With the situation of the Tian clan, as long as one reached adulthood, it seemed that there was no realm below the profound realm. One could see Tian clan experts with completely different faces everywhere. This was similar to the 10,000 worlds in the universe, a race that always looked similar but different. Some were humanoid, some were beast-shaped, some were similar to the human clan leader, and some were similar to the demon clan leader. There were all kinds of them. This was also one of the sources of many rumors about the Tian clan. Many people suspected that they were actually not the same race, but only stayed here for some reason. Because apart from having a similar aura, it was impossible to tell that they were of the same race from their appearance. This completely subverted everyone's understanding. Therefore, Yi Shiwen's human appearance was not eye-catching at all in the city. In fact, this appearance was the most common. The city was bustling with activity. Yi Shiwen walked all the way. Even in the base camp of the Tian clan, with his strength, he was above most of the Tian clan. There was no pressure at all. He came to a square, and suddenly there was a noise. "Get out of the way! Get out of the way!" A noise came from the crowd, and a few strong men squeezed out and came to the bulletin board in the square. "What is this?" Many people looked over. "It's the announcement of the ninth prince. It seems that he wants to recruit experts from our city to go to the resting place of the ancestors." Someone read it out. Yi Shiwen also looked over. With his cultivation, it was not difficult for him to understand the language of the Tian clan. He had already completely comprehended it a long time ago. It can't be. The resting place of the ancestors has opened again? Isn't the next time supposed to be 10,000 years later? It's all because of the rebels outside. Now the rebels seem to know that we have found the opportunity to become emperors, and they are frantically sweeping all of our strongholds outside. The world is going to be chaotic. In order to improve the strength of our clan, the elders of each clan have decided to open the resting place of the ancestors in advance, and let the elite geniuses of our clan enter to increase their strength. So that's how it is. But the ninth prince has already entered the peak of the sage realm. He is indeed qualified to be called an elite genius. I heard that the ninth prince is talented and has the talent to become a great emperor. Although the ninth prince is not bad, the other princes are also talented and bold. They are not bad at all. Everyone was talking. "Excuse me, brother. May I ask where the resting place of the ancestors is?" Yi Shiwen asked the person next to him. This person looked at Yi Shiwen as if he was looking at a country bumpkin, and then said, "Don't tell me you just came in from another stronghold." "Yes." Yi Shiwen took the opportunity to admit it. "That's right. The other strongholds are just strongholds. They can't be compared to us. Let me tell you, the resting place of the ancestors is the resting place of many of our ancestors. Among them is even the resting place of the emperor of our clan." This person explained to Yi Shiwen. Speaking of which, this was originally a battlefield. Countless senior experts of our clan have fallen there. Many of our clan's young geniuses have entered long ago and obtained a lot of benefits. The ninth prince must have entered with the intention of breaking through to the king realm in one go. Now that the world is so chaotic, whether or not our clan can rule the world again depends on this. Yi Shiwen suddenly had a plan. It turned out that the resting place of the ancestors was such a place. Although it was dangerous, there must be many fortuitous encounters. As an outsider, it would be very difficult for him to enter. But now, with the opportunity of the ninth prince, it was completely different. Thinking of this, he went to the location of the ninth prince's residence that the person had mentioned. At this time, he finally understood the specific situation of the Sky Clan. There were very few records of the specific situation of the Sky Clan, even in the Hidden Valley. It turned out that the Celestial Clan was not a monolithic block, but was divided into 10 great dynasties, and he was now in the Tianqi dynasty of the 10 great dynasties. This dynasty was said to be extremely ancient, and it could even be traced back to the First War against the Heavens. Later on, although most of the Celestial Clan was sealed in a different space, there were still many people left, and a part of them formed the Tianqi dynasty. It was said that the Heaven Awakened dynasty also had the bloodline of a supreme emperor in the Tian clan, the Heaven Awakened Emperor. Currently, the one in charge of the Heaven Awakened dynasty was one of the few experts in the Tian clan, the Heaven Awakened Monarch. The ninth prince was one of the thousands of sons of the Tianqi king. Among the thousands of sons of the Tianqi king, at least more than half of them had cultivated to the god realm. Among them, the ninth prince and a few other princes were even more outstanding. They were ambitious to successfully seize the throne. Now, it was actually a battle to seize the throne. After digesting all of this, Yi Shiwen slightly curled his lips. Although the celestial race was known as a transcendent race, in fact, it was no different from the human race and other races. There was also infighting and competition for the throne. They were not as noble as they claimed to be. However, this was also a good opportunity for him to successfully participate in it. He thought about it. If he wanted to leave here, whether it was to send a message to the outside world or to leave here, he had to go through the high-level route. Although there were many experts in the Sky Clan and the probability of being discovered was high, Yi Shiwen was confident that with his current strength, as long as he was careful, there should not be a problem. In the worst case, he could rely on the space wings to smoothly escape. As the saying goes, advance and retreat freely, so he did not have to worry about this. It didn't take long for him to arrive outside the ninth prince's mansion. The entire mansion was endless and occupied a vast area. It was just like a small city, heavily guarded. Stop! What the hell are you doing? Yi Shiwen had just entered when he was stopped by 2 Sky Clan guards. I'm here to answer the ninth prince's summon, Yi Shiwen said. The way the two looked at Yi Shiwen immediately changed. The ninth prince had posted the imperial list. During this time, many strange people and strange things had come to the Sky Clan. No matter who they were, without exception, they were all powerhouses from all sides. The masters of the entire city wanted to try their luck. They were not people that these insignificant guards could afford to offend. So that's how it is. Young master, please come inside. The guards quickly invited Yi Shiwen in. Soon, someone came out and led Yi Shiwen into a side courtyard. Although it was called a side courtyard, it was actually quite luxurious. At this time, there were already many people waiting in the courtyard. Every one of them exuded an extremely dangerous aura, completely giving off an aura that prevented strangers from entering. Although it is said that the ninth prince is recruiting heroes from all over the world, I'm afraid that not everyone can enter as they please. You're just a small sage late stage. What makes you think you can do it? Chapter 2672. Yi Shiwen looked up and saw an unknown creature standing out. It was about 10 meters tall and was extremely huge. Its entire body was covered in black scales and was wrapped in black lightning. There was a pair of huge wings on its back that could almost cover its entire body. It was obvious that it had concealed its true form. Otherwise, once its true form was revealed, even the entire city would not be able to contain it. In this place, they did not dare to be presumptuous. It was extremely powerful, and it was also an extremely talented ferocious beast. Its cultivation had even reached the peak of the Sage Plane, and it dominated an area. It was in existence at the level of an ancestor. I am not qualified, but do you think you are? Yi Shiwen sneered and said, Of course I am qualified. Just the name Dark Thunder Beast alone makes me qualified. The ferocious beast said arrogantly. What the hell is this? I've never heard of it. Yi Shiwen sneered. He looked around and saw that there were many strong cultivators around. This time, the ninth prince was recruiting talents for the imperial ranking, and many people had come to join him. This so-called Dark Thunder Beast probably wanted to use him to establish his dominance. After all, from the looks of it, he seemed to be the easiest to bully. In terms of cultivation level, he was indeed the lowest among the people present. "How dare you?" The Dark Thunder Beast shouted and grinned hideously. He instantly attacked. He had been waiting for this opportunity, a chance to establish his dominance, and a chance to let the Ninth Prince see his strength. If he fought with others, both sides might be injured, and that was not what he wanted to see. However, this guy was only at the late stage of the Sage Plane. Wasn't he a good target to establish his dominance? He had clearly seen that many people were also eager to make a move, and that was why he hurriedly spoke up to prevent others from snatching him away. Boundless lightning power spread out in an instant, but it was suppressed in an extremely narrow space, unable to wreak havoc. That was because this city was the Ninth Prince's fief, and no one was allowed to mess around here. In this city, there were even king-ranked cultivators, and it was not a place where he could wreak havoc. However, he didn't care. In his opinion, even if he couldn't use his full power, it should be more than enough to deal with a sage in the late stage. And at this time, Yi Shiwen also attacked. He also launched a counterattack. He stretched out a big hand, and it swelled up against the wind and pressed forward. It seemed as if it had transformed into a world-destroying millstone and destroyed everything in its path. Bang! Yi Shiwen's golden hand was able to extinguish all the power of thunder released by the Dark Thunder Beast without any hesitation. The Dark Thunder Beast was shocked. Although it was unable to use its full power due to the place it was in, it had used an extremely ancient lightning saint technique that was extremely powerful. Even a true sage at the pinnacle of the Sage Plane would find it difficult to withstand such terrifying lightning power, but it had been defeated by a junior in the late stage of the Sage Plane. Boom! Yi Shiwen's golden hand didn't slow down in the slightest as it directly moved towards the Dark Thunder Beast to grab it. The Dark Thunder Beast simply didn't have time to think. It just roared and stretched out its huge beast claw, grabbing forward. The collision between the two was like raging waves crashing against the shore, and endless, terrifying divine power surged. Bang! In such a collision, a muffled sound was heard, and the beast's claw simply broke apart, turning into a cloud of blood mist and exploding. Blood splattered everywhere, and bone fragments flew everywhere. It looked extremely wretched. Roar! The Dark Thunder Beast let out a loud roar and retreated in pain. Its physical body had been forcefully tempered by the Dark Thunder Beast Saint technique, and its physical body had almost reached the peak of perfection. Yet it still suffered such a huge loss. Yi Shiwen was unforgiving. It wanted to use Yi Shiwen to establish its dominance, and conversely, Yi Shiwen also needed to use heads to establish his dominance. There was no way he would let go of such an opportunity. Yi Shiwen took a step forward, and his speed was extremely fast. Even without using the wings of space, he rushed in front of the Dark Thunder Beast in an instant. Roar! It opened its bloody mouth and spat out a mouthful of terrifying thunder power. This was the thunder power of its source, and it was different from ordinary thunder power. An unguarded almighty at the pinnacle of the Sage realm would be severely injured in an instant, and in serious cases, they would die tragically. However, it usually wouldn't use such a move often because of the supreme vital chi. Even the source of a god would not be able to withstand such a terrifying consumption. However, an even more unexpected scene happened. Yi Shiwen stretched out a big hand. Yi Shiwen didn't dodge or evade. Instead, Yi Shiwen rushed in and grabbed and wiped out the power of Thunder Source. No, it should be said that it wasn't wiped out, but it was completely absorbed. It was as if his body was a huge battery. Such power of thunder couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen at all. It could only be used to replenish his energy. Bang! Yi Shiwen slapped the body of the Dark Thunder Beast, and the Dark Thunder Beast's body was torn apart on the spot, exploding on the spot. Blood splattered everywhere, and bone fragments flew everywhere. That incomparably powerful Dark Thunder Beast was no match for Yi Shiwen at all, and it was killed in one move. The scene was extremely bloody, but everyone in the field looked normal, but their hearts were still in turmoil. They didn't think that the scene was bloody, but on the contrary, they were just shocked by Yi Shiwen's strength. There were many who believed that they could defeat the Dark Thunder Beast, but there were only a few who dared to say that they could definitely kill it. And among those few, there was no one who dared to kill the Dark Thunder Beast in such a ferocious manner. So, they were shocked and awed in their hearts. Originally, some people wanted to use Yi Shiwen to establish their prestige and establish their own reputation. But now, they immediately extinguished such thoughts. What kind of joke was this? Such a character could be forced to commit suicide by him. So, how could they dare to use him to establish their prestige? It was simply a joke. Yi Fuqian had been completely crushed by an expert at the peak of the Sage Plane. It was no wonder that a warrior in the late stage of the Sage Plane dared to accept such an imperial ranking. He indeed had his own strength. Good. What a wonderful battle. Suddenly, a loud voice came from afar, and a young man in a white robe strode over. In but a moment, he was already in front of everyone. The young man was handsome and had an extraordinary bearing. If there was anything different from ordinary humans, it would be that his eyes were green. It was not the gloomy kind of green, but a kind of green like emeralds, full of nobility and mystery. It was the symbol of the Tianqi dynasty's royal family. Legend had it that Tianqi the Great had a pair of green eyes like this. It was not a decoration, but a kind of innate magic. There were only a few divine bloodlines with eyes in the world. No one knew what they were called before, but now there was only one name for them: the Eyes of Tianqi. This pair of eyes was the symbol of the Tianqi dynasty's royal family. Every adult of the royal family who opened this pair of Eyes of Tianqi would have their strength greatly increased, and they would have the ability to see through the yin and yang of the world, as well as the 9 levels of hell. It was extremely amazing. Yi Shiwen's heart slightly moved. Seeing that the eyes of the 9th prince fell on him, he began to constantly operate the sword of domination, and the aura of the celestial race on his body became more intense. The 9th prince looked for a while before withdrawing his gaze. It was a bit strange. Even with the Eyes of Tianqi, he couldn't see through the body of this person in front of him. Could it be a natural Taoist body? This was not impossible. For example, the Tianqi dynasty had natural Taoist bodies, and they looked very similar to humans. This was the recognized natural Taoist body in the universe. Many weak races and even extremely powerful races would cultivate with the goal of completely transforming into this type of body. This was the form that was closest to the Great Tao. Legend had it that the supreme being that split the heavens and earth apart had such a form. There were many races in the universe that were born with natural Taoist bodies, but the human race was the most famous. Therefore, many people called this kind of natural Taoist body humanoid. Of course, with the pride of the celestial race, they would naturally not admit it. They would only say that it was a natural Taoist body. Greetings, 9th Prince. Everyone bowed according to the ancient etiquette of the celestial race. Yi Shiwen also did the same and followed suit. Brothers, you are too courteous, the 9th Prince said with a smile. Even if he had a distinguished status, he didn't want to offend these overlords. Perhaps they were not masters of the king realm, but there was no need to offend all of them. He was a prince with the ambition to ascend to the throne. Naturally, he would not do such a thing. Brothers, I am very pleased that you responded to my summons. It seems that there are still many talents in my territory, the 9th Prince said with a smile. This is all thanks to the governance of your highness. If someone else had been in charge, we would not have been able to develop so smoothly. Yes, we are also relying on the 9th Prince's good fortune. Everyone started to flatter the 9th Prince. Brothers, your time is also very precious. I will not waste your time. This time, I have issued the imperial list. Everyone should be very clear about the purpose of this time. It is to enter the place where the ancestors rest. When the time comes, I will need your help. The 9th Prince cupped his hands and said, I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. We should be relying on the 9th Prince. Many people hurriedly said that they did not dare. Although the 9th Prince had summoned them, they were very eager to enter the place where the ancestors rest. Usually, they would not have such an opportunity. Chapter 2673. Although the resting place of the ancestor was famous in the Tian clan, in reality, it was sealed by the Tian clan's several great dynasties. Other than the royal family and their trusted aides, it was impossible for anyone else to enter. Furthermore, there were many more opportunities in there, so it was impossible for everyone not to be envious. It was just that there was no such opportunity in the past. This was also why so many experts had come to apply for the Ninth Prince's imperial ranking list. Rather than saying that the Ninth Prince was famous, it was better to say that the place where his ancestors were resting was an unimaginable attraction to everyone. In particular, many of these people had basically already stepped into the pinnacle of the sage plane. They were not monstrous geniuses. Such peerless geniuses, even in the Tian clan, where geniuses gathered, only a rare few could reach such a level. If they wanted to enter the king-ranked realm normally, they could only try their luck by entering their ancestors' resting place. The god burial star sea in the outside world was far too dangerous. Without the protection of a large group of people, they were not willing to go out casually. Almost all the other races saw them as natural enemies. Once they showed themselves, they would be destroyed and killed. Therefore, it seemed that the Ninth Prince was asking them for help, but in fact, they were asking the Ninth Prince for help. Naturally, they could not be too polite. The Ninth Prince saw that everyone was quite sensible and could not help but nod in satisfaction. He then said, "Since everyone is very clear, then I will not say anything more. This time, it is not only related to the future of your families, but it is also related to the future of my family. If you perform well, I will not be stingy with my rewards." "Thank you, Your Highness," everyone said in unison. This time, although the resting place of the ancestors was opened early, our goal is still the same. It is to find the glazed spirit increasing fruit. I will not interfere with other things, but I want as many glazed spirit increasing fruits as I have. Rest assured, I will not mistreat you. The Ninth Prince said. Understood. Yi Shiwen's expression did not change, but his heart was shocked. Their goal was actually the glazed spirit increasing fruit. This kind of natural treasure, even in the heavens and the 10,000 realms, it was extremely rare. Only after the masters of the Tian clan died and their essence chi did not dissipate, under a series of coincidences, could they produce a treasure of heaven and earth. It was a bit like the dragon yuan fruit, but this kind of glazed spirit increasing fruit was even rarer. Even if ordinary Tian clan gods died, they would not be able to produce a glazed spirit increasing fruit. Only when gods above the sage plane died would there be a certain chance of producing such a treasure of heaven and earth. But even then, the chance of success was still very, very small. Only a few could succeed. The main thing was that the glazed essence increasing fruits all came from king-ranked formidable martial artists. Only when king-ranked formidable martial artists perished would they be able to produce glazed essence increasing fruits. The chances were also higher. One could imagine how precious such a natural treasure was. How many king-ranked realm masters in the world would die to bear such a natural treasure? This natural treasure only had one effect, and that was to increase one's skills. Furthermore, it was not as simple as just increasing one's skills. This was because this glazed spirit increasing fruit contained part of the great path of the fallen god. Once consumed, it was very likely that one could directly refine the great path of others. One's cultivation level would be able to break through very quickly, and it would undoubtedly be much easier to break through. At that moment, he finally understood why the Ninth Prince had specially emphasized this glazed spirit increasing fruit. As long as one consumed enough of this glazed spirit increasing fruit, it was very likely that one would be able to directly enter the king-ranked realm. The difference between the peak of the sage realm and the king-ranked realm was like the difference between heaven and earth. Needless to say, other natural treasures would at most increase one's skills. The Ninth Prince had already reached the peak of the sage realm, and he was almost as powerful as those monstrous geniuses. His skills were terrifyingly deep, but he had already reached the end. If he wanted to improve further, the glazed spirit increasing fruit was undoubtedly an excellent way. However, it was hard to say how many people would listen to him. Because the Ninth Prince needed the glazed spirit increasing fruit, they also needed it to break through to the king-ranked realm. Once they successfully broke through to the king-ranked realm, they would be able to rule over territories in the Tianqi dynasty and truly become a lord. There was no need for them to rely on others. Even Yi Shiwen immediately made up his mind after hearing about the glazed spirit increasing fruit. He had to snatch enough glazed spirit increasing fruit. That way, he would not be far from breaking through to the king-ranked realm again. When that time came, he would be able to rush to the peak of the sage realm in one go. After a few more years of training in seclusion, he might even be able to break through to the king-ranked realm in one go. By then, he would definitely be an expert among the king-ranked realm, fearless. Anyone who wanted to plot against him would have to see if they had the strength to do so. The prerequisite for all of this was whether or not they could find or even snatch the glazed spirit increasing fruit. The ninth prince naturally knew what these people were thinking. They could easily see through him with just one look. However, he did not care. It would not be easy for these people to hide from him. More importantly, he could not let others get to the glazed spirit increasing fruit first. It was not as simple as one or two people who had the ability to compete for the throne. In that case, I will not say anything more. Let's gather here in a month, and we will go directly to the resting place of our ancestors. The ninth prince said plainly. Everyone left one after another, and Yi Shiwen also mixed in with the crowd. Sir, please wait a moment. His Highness invites you in. Yi Shiwen was just about to walk out of the ninth prince's residence when a servant stopped him. Yi Shiwen was a little puzzled. He did not know what the ninth prince was planning, but he was not afraid. With his level of cultivation, he would be able to successfully escape even if he were to face a mid-stage king-ranked realm expert. When he followed the servant of the ninth prince's residence into a hall, he found that there were already 3 people waiting there. There were 2 men and 1 woman. Of the 2 men, one was an old man in a white robe who looked like an immortal. The other was a skinny middle-aged man, but his chi and blood were very strong. Just one look at him made him feel extremely dangerous. The remaining woman was a beautiful middle-aged woman. She was beautiful, but she had a somewhat cold expression on her face, making it hard for people to get close to her. They were all experts at the level of geniuses in antiques. Yi Shiwen only needed one look to recognize them. These people were obviously much stronger than ordinary people at the peak of the sage realm. Every one of them was comparable to geniuses and antiques in the outside world, and they were the best of the best among the sage realm. At that moment, he vaguely understood why he had been specially invited here. It must have been because he had killed people to establish his authority. This place was probably off-limits to non-elites, and his performance of instantly killing the Dark Thunder Beast was also seen by some people, which was why they had invited him this time. Seeing someone come in, the 3 of them looked up and found that it was only a late-stage sage realm expert. They could not help but feel a little strange, but they did not say anything and just waited quietly. Yi Shiwen also sat down. The 4 of them sat in 4 corners, facing each other. It looked like a strange confrontation. My apologies, brothers, I am late. Suddenly, the ninth prince's hearty laughter came from outside the hall. It sounded very hearty, and it made people feel good about him. Then, the ninth prince strode in and nodded to everyone. The ninth prince said, Brothers, you must be very curious why I called you all here in private. The ninth prince said, Don't keep us in suspense. Hurry up and tell us. We don't have so much time to waste here. The middle-aged woman said coldly, and her tone was a little cold. The ninth prince just smiled and didn't take this middle-aged woman's words to heart. The white-robed old man said, Yes, if you have something to say, just say it. The ninth prince said, All right, I will make it short. The ninth prince said, Here's the thing, I wonder if anyone is interested in the glazed spirit increasing fruit. The eyes of the few people suddenly lit up. Of course, the thin, middle-aged man immediately said. The glazed spirit increasing fruit was a temptation for them, needless to say. Even at this level, it was still difficult to escape the temptation. The ninth prince said confidently, That's right. Yi Shiwen asked tentatively, Has your highness found a place that is rich in glazed spirit increasing fruit? Yes, that's right. The ninth prince nodded at Yi Shiwen and said with a smile, I have indeed found a place that is rich in glazed spirit-increasing fruit, but that was tens of thousands of years ago. It hadn't matured at that time, but now it should have matured completely, and it's time to pick it. Everyone heard this and immediately became excited. It was very difficult to find a glazed spirit-increasing fruit, and it was very likely that it had been contaminated with the blood essence and soul of a certain king realm expert to grow. Moreover, it was a place that was rich in glazed spirit-increasing fruit. If such a place were to spread, the entire Tianqi dynasty would be in an uproar. Now is the time to work together with the brothers. The ninth prince stopped smiling and said with a serious look on his face, "The reason why I brought this matter up is because I think that you guys don't want to have a few more competitors, right?" Everyone nodded seriously. They didn't know how many glazed spirit-increasing fruit there were, but they knew that they absolutely didn't want to have more competitors. The more glazed spirit-increasing fruit there were, the higher their chances of becoming a king. "I wonder how we're going to split it," the middle-aged woman asked. "It's very simple. I want 50%, and the rest will be divided equally among the four of you. I think there shouldn't be a problem with this." Chapter 2674. The few of them nodded silently. After all, they were able to enter the ancestral resting ground this time, mainly because of the ninth prince. It was just that no one knew what they were thinking in their hearts. If it was Yi Shiwen, he would not have handed over the glazed spirit-increasing fruit so easily. He would have just taken it and left. "However, since you have found us, why did you summon those people outside?" the white-robed elder asked. "Very simple. To distract them, I will ask someone else to lead these people to search for the glazed spirit-increasing fruit. We will try our best to hide from them and buy enough time for our operation." The ninth prince looked at everyone and said, "Since that is the case, we understand," the middle-aged lady said. "However, during this period of time, I'll have to trouble everyone to temporarily stay in the residence. When the time comes, we can directly set off from here. There's no need to run back and forth," the ninth prince said as he looked at everyone with a meaningful gaze. The few of them were not stupid. Naturally, they understood that this was a way to control them. Now that they knew this secret, it would not be so easy for them to leave. Everyone nodded and agreed. The reason was simple. They did not want this news to be leaked. If it was leaked, the consequences would undoubtedly be very dangerous. Not only would they lose the glazed spirit-increasing fruit, but if they were ambushed along the way, even with their cultivation and confidence, they would not be able to escape. The only good news was that king-ranked formidable martial artists were not allowed to enter the ancestral resting ground. The ancestral resting ground itself was a huge, ancient battlefield, and the spatial zone there was already very weak. If king-ranked formidable martial artists were to fight there, it was very likely that the ancestral resting ground would collapse. If that happened, the Tian race's ancestral ancestors might be exiled into the endless void along with the collapsing spatial zone. No one would be able to bear the consequences of such a crime. If king-ranked martial artists were allowed to enter and they started fighting, even a race's territory would be turned into dust. Not to mention a place like this where the spatial zone laws were broken. However, this was only a rule on the surface. In reality, no one knew if any king-ranked martial artists had entered. And no problem, Yi Shiwen also nodded and didn't refuse. He also wanted to take advantage of this period of time to properly practice and adjust his state to the peak. 1 month quickly passed. During this entire month, Yi Shiwen had been in closed-door cultivation. The servants of the ninth prince's residence were very attentive. However, the ninth prince's main time was still in closed-door cultivation, so no one came to disturb him. They only needed to confirm that Yi Shiwen hadn't sent any messages to the outside during this time. They were very confident about this. The entire King Manor was filled with all sorts of barriers. Even a king-rank martial artist would not be able to spread the news without anyone knowing. 1 month passed by quickly. Soon it was the end of the month. A large group of experts gathered in the ninth prince's palace. Almost all of the experts in the ninth prince's territory had come. Not many people could resist the temptation of entering the ancestral land and obtaining a fortuitous encounter. The foreign experts took the lead and stepped into the teleportation array under the lead of a powerful expert from the Ninth Prince's residence. Yi Shiwen and the others finally gathered together after these people had taken the lead and entered the hall. Everyone, I will have to trouble all of you this time. Once we find the glazed essence increasing fruit, I will not mistreat all of you, the Ninth Prince said again. Everyone nodded, and then stepped into the teleportation array under the Ninth Prince's lead. By the time everyone regained their senses, they had already been teleported into the so-called ancestral land of eternal rest. At a glance, it was like the end of the world. Black holes could be seen everywhere in the sky. In that place, all the laws were shattered. There was not even a single law that had taken shape. There was a terrifying divine power wreaking havoc. It was because of this god power that the nomological laws in the holes could not recover. Even after billions of years, nothing had changed. The god power would never dissipate. Signs of nomological laws breaking could be seen everywhere. It was indeed a very terrifying battlefield. It probably had a lot to do with the War of Resistance. However, this battlefield seemed to be unknown. It wasn't like the god Burial Star Ocean, which was not only famous but also controlled by the various races. Several people also released their divine senses. However, they discovered that they couldn't probe very far even with the strength of their divine senses. This is the ancestral land of eternal rest. The middle-aged beautiful woman took a deep breath and said, I seem to smell the aura of my ancestor. I don't know if it's an illusion or not. It's definitely not an illusion. This is an ancient battlefield. Which bloodline of our clan doesn't have an ancestor who has fallen here? The Ninth Prince said, Let's not waste time since we have arrived. Let's hurry up. Although that place is very hidden, it is still possible that someone else will get there first. Everyone nodded and then followed the Ninth Prince. They flew in another direction. The other people who had been recruited by the Ninth Prince had gone in another direction. It was obvious that they were separated. A figure slowly emerged not far after the Ninth Prince and the others had left. As expected, the Ninth Prince is plotting something. He must have found something that he doesn't want others to know about. That's why he is hiding, the figure said slowly. I have to go back and report to the Third Prince. Swish! Not long after the Ninth Prince left, a blood-colored figure slowly emerged. It was none other than Yi Shiwen. This was the blood god clone that he had split off. Its strength was naturally far inferior to his original body. However, it had no problem dealing with a monster at the peak of the Sage Realm and an old antique. It was easy for the blood god clone to hide from the Ninth Prince and the others. However, how could it hide from Yi Shiwen, who already had the combat power of a king-ranked realm? Yi Shiwen didn't expose it. Instead, he quietly split off a blood god clone. It was good that someone had come to cause trouble. Otherwise, how could he take advantage of the chaos? He was determined to obtain the glazed spirit increasing fruit. However, it would be best if he could obtain the glazed spirit increasing fruit without exposing himself. He still wanted to use the Ninth Prince of the Tianqi dynasty to leave the Divine Kingdom. The blood god clone took a quick look and then turned into a beam of blood-colored light. He had to find the so-called Seventh Prince and the others first before he could plan his next step. In the Ninth Prince's group, Yi Shiwen frowned quietly and then dispersed. He already knew the situation with the blood god clone, but he didn't intend to expose it. The entire place where the ancestors were resting was a huge battlefield. Space and time were very messed up here. There were even signs of Emperor King level masters fighting. Therefore, time and space were already a mess. Time and space fragments hidden in the void could be seen everywhere. The time fragments, in particular, were extremely dangerous. If one accidentally entered it, time could be taken away, making one age instantly. This was also very effective against gods. It could even reverse time and make gods return to the state where they had not achieved Tao validation. In such a terrifying battlefield, not achieving Tao validation was equivalent to sending them to their deaths. Even though the Ninth Prince had already scouted the path the last time he entered, everyone was still very careful. In a battlefield like this, only king-rank martial artists would be able to walk freely. However, king-rank martial artists would not be allowed to enter. Yi Shiwen was naturally unhindered in the group. With the strength of his divine kingdom, it was impossible for these fragments to get close to him. However, he didn't want to make it too special. The group traveled through this battlefield for a month before they finally reached their destination. It was a huge cemetery. The entire surrounding space was forcefully twisted, and a natural formation was formed instantly. However, no one was surprised. Only the fallen heavenly race martial artists could form this glazed spirit-increasing fruit. Normally, they would form in the graves of gods. Which King Realm martial artist's grave is this? Yi Shiwen asked as he looked at the ninth prince. Actually, I'm not very sure either. The last time I came here, I only caught a glimpse of the glazed energy-increasing fruit. I didn't have time to explore it in detail. The ninth prince said faintly. They didn't know if this was true, but they didn't ask much. However, this formation is troublesome. The formation of a King Realm martial artist's grave is enough to keep us out. The white-robed elder said. The few of them nodded. Even if a King Realm martial artist was dead, his power would not diminish. He was still unimaginably strong. Don't worry. I actually thought about this a long time ago. Come out. The ninth prince commanded. In the void, a skinny figure slowly appeared. The middle-aged woman was a little shocked. They didn't notice anyone following them along the way. The other two also had grim looks on their faces. As almighty gods at the pinnacle of the sage plane, they had not noticed anything at all. Don't think too much. I thought about this a long time ago. That's why I invited a formation master. This is Master Zhou, the ninth prince said lightly. Chapter 2675. The ninth prince did not intend to explain further, and the few did not ask any further. However, they all increased their vigilance. It was embarrassing enough that they had not been discovered when someone had come all the way here. Among the few of them, only Yi Shiwen looked angry on the surface, but he was actually very calm. That was because Master Zhou had followed them all the way here, and he had been under his control. Even the king-ranked Killer King would not have been able to follow him without him noticing, much less a divine lord at the pinnacle of the sage plane. It was only because he had carved a very impressive concealment matrix on himself that he had been able to fool the others. Although he could not fool Yi Shiwen, it was still very impressive. At the same time, Master Zhou began to move. He looked up and down the entire tomb of the king-ranked master. This kind of naturally formed matrix was even more terrifying than man-made ones, especially when it was formed under the influence of the laws of the king-ranked master. Its power was even more shocking. If one tried to barge in without finding the eye of the matrix, it would be a dead end for them. Yi Shiwen and the others waited patiently at the side. After waiting for 3 days and 3 nights, they finally managed to break the matrix with great difficulty. Boom! The entire array formation exploded with a loud bang. Then, endless rays of light scattered in all directions. Countless spiritual auras surged out from it. At that moment, everyone could finally see what was going on with the matrix. They found that there was a coffin in the center of the matrix. The coffin looked extremely luxurious, and there seemed to be an indescribable imprint of the Great Path appearing on it. However, what attracted everyone's attention was not the coffin, but the colorful ball of light that was suppressed under the coffin. Everyone opened their all-seeing eyes and found that the ball of light was actually wrapped in a divine robe. It was shining with flowing colors, and it had an inexplicable power. However, this divine robe was suppressed by countless chains of laws, and what was suppressing this divine robe was none other than the coffin above it. The chains of laws continued to extend from the top of the coffin, locking the divine robe in place. It's actually not the Tian clan. Yi Shiwen's pupils contracted slightly, because he discovered that this divine robe was actually not a magic treasure of the Tian clan. There was not much of the aura of the Tian clan on it, and the reason why it was not much was because it seemed to have been continuously eroded by the chains of law for a long time, and had actually begun to be infected with a little bit of the aura of the Tian clan. What the hell is this? Why did it appear here? There's actually a supreme king of the Tian clan personally suppressing it. Even if he died, his coffin was forcibly suppressed here. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but be a little surprised. It must have been left behind during the War of Resistance against the Heavens. Otherwise, it would not have appeared here. However, the number of experts who died in the two War of Resistance against the Heavens was innumerable. It was unknown how many famous figures had fallen. Even the number of sovereign emperors who had fallen was not just one or two. One could imagine how intense the war had been. Similarly, it seemed impossible to recognize the origin of the divine robe just by looking at it from afar. What the hell is that? The others also asked. At the same time, they were incomparably shocked. Even until now, that coffin was still exuding a kind of aura that made people's hearts palpitate. It was not something that ordinary people could compare with. Perhaps even among the King Realm experts, it belonged to the top. However, it had needed to use all of its strength to suppress this divine robe. It was simply unimaginable. Everyone's eyes suddenly blazed. It seemed that compared to this, even their original target, the glazed spirit increasing fruit, was no longer important. Originally, in other places, it was already very difficult to have one or two glazed spirit increasing fruit. However, in this place, there were actually 99 glazed spirit increasing fruits, reaching the extreme limit of the Great Way. Only then did it stop growing. To be able to grow 10 glazed spirit increasing fruits was already something that could only be achieved by the King Realm experts of the Tian clan. Not to mention that there were so many glazed spirit increasing fruits. How strong was the original owner of that coffin? It was simply unimaginable. He was probably already a top king, comparable to the so-called top 10 kings in the outside world. The pattern on that coffin seems to be the symbol of the Redbud clan. Could it be that the one lying inside is the Redbud clan patriarch, the first-generation Redbud king who has been missing for a long time? At this moment, the beautiful middle-aged woman suddenly thought of something and couldn't help but exclaim. Yes, it is the pattern of the Redbud clan. It is the Redbud king. The ninth prince suddenly exclaimed. I didn't expect it to be the Redbud king. In the past, he was known as one of the strongest kings below the Emperor King. He was comparable to the 10,000 Dharma kings. Later on, he disappeared. I didn't expect that he would actually fall here. Yes, the people of the Redbud clan have been searching for their ancestor for countless years. In the end, they had no way of finding him. I didn't expect that he would be completely isolated here. The white-robed old man couldn't help but say, then what is this divine robe? Even an invincible king, like the Redbud king, had to use his life to suppress it. The beautiful middle-aged woman said in surprise. Everyone became even more excited, especially after recognizing the identity of the Redbud king. They were even more interested in this divine robe that the Redbud king had to use his life to suppress. Could it be the time robe? At this moment, the ninth prince suddenly exclaimed. According to the records of our royal family, the disappearance of the Redbud king was related to the Time Lord. Time Lord? Everyone was shocked. Even though the name of the Lord of Time sounded like an ordinary Lord God, and there wasn't anything strange about it. In fact, anyone who had heard of this name knew exactly what it meant. This was because this was one of the few emperor kings that had existed since ancient times. When the Second War of the Resistance against the Heavens was at its most intense, the allied forces of the various races were retreating step by step. When they were in imminent danger, the Time Lord appeared out of nowhere and swept all the way, reversing the decline. The Time Lord was originally just a peak monarch. After that, he had completely advanced to become a great emperor. In order to hunt down this new great emperor, the Sky Race could be said to have used all their means. Not only did they send 2 great emperors, but they also brought a group of peak supreme monarchs. According to everyone's opinion, such a lineup should have been more than enough to deal with any kind of enemy. With 2 emperor kings, what kind of enemy could they not defeat? However, when they faced the Time Lord, they suffered a great loss. The Time Lord, who had mastered the power of time, was extremely terrifying. Even emperor kings had suffered a great loss at his hands. In the end, both sides suffered great losses. The Time Lord had fallen, and the two Emperor Kings of the Sky Race had also fallen at the same time. This battle had completely spread the name of the Time Lord and completely reversed the situation of the Allied forces lacking Emperor Kings. The situation had returned to a balanced situation, providing an excellent opportunity for the counterattack later on. The Second War of the Resistance against the Heavens had also been a turning point with the Time Lord's battle. It could be said that this man had single-handedly ruined the great situation of the Sky Race. How could the remnants of the Sky Race not pay attention to this man? If that's the case, everything seems to make sense. Although the Time Lord is fallen, his time robe is still around. That is his life Dharma artifact. If it falls into the hands of those traitors, I'm afraid it will lead to a huge disaster. Hence, the Purple Thorns King sacrificed his life to suppress the time robe. The more the white-robed elder looked at the time robe, the more his eyes blazed. Although the time robe was not a magic treasure of their celestial clan, with the pride of their celestial clan, ordinary magic treasures were not enough to make them have such thoughts. However, this was once the life weapon of an emperor. No matter how one thought about it, its power could not be exaggerated. As long as they could obtain the time robe, their strength would immediately increase by a level. The Ninth Prince's expression also turned ugly. He had not expected that the time Dharma robe would suppress him. If not, he would not have attracted so many people here. Even if he had to suffer some losses, he wanted to keep the time Dharma robe for himself. With the time Dharma robe, he would be able to go against king-ranked martial artists. He would not be defeated. When that time came, he would immediately stand out among the many princes. However, he had been discovered by everyone now. Furthermore, he did not have many experts with him. Even if he wanted to silence them, it would be too late. Everyone, the time robe belonged to the Time King. Now that the Time King has fallen, I think his belongings should still be returned to the Elders Guild. Before that, I will take care of it. What do you think? The Ninth Prince said lightly. However, a terrifying aura suddenly erupted from his body. The threat was very strong. At this moment, everyone seemed to have realized that the Ninth Prince's skills were actually so profound. The white-robed old man and the others were already monstrous. However, the Ninth Prince's skills were actually more profound than theirs. In addition, there was the so-called Master Zhou, who took orders from the Ninth Prince. Even if everyone wanted to covet the time robe, they would have to consider whether they had the strength to do so. Only the royal family is qualified to have this item. If anyone else wants to covet the time robe, I'm afraid they will die a horrible death. The beautiful middle-aged woman understood that even if they could obtain the time robe now, they wouldn't have the ability to keep it. Perhaps only a peak monarch could keep the time robe. So, what use would they have if they obtained it? I can give up on the time robe, but I want more glazed spirit-increasing fruits. No problem. The Ninth Prince was immediately overjoyed. Compared to the time robe, the glazed spirit-increasing fruits seemed to be insignificant. Yi Shiwen's eyes flashed with a bright light. He was just about to attack and kill these people when a loud laughter came from the void. I was wondering what Ninth Brother was doing. It turns out that you have found the time robe. The heavens are really helping me. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.